Είμαι live ή δεν είμαι? Δεν είμαι. Όχι, είμαι. Πάτησε το κουμπί. Έλα φωνικέ, καλημέρα. Καλημέρα Θοδωρή. Καλημέρα παιδιά, ελπίζουμε να δούμε. Ναι, και σήμερα λογικά ο Ding θα πρέπει να πει με τα λευκά. Και εγώ αυτό ελπίζω σήμερα και έχω και το προαίσθημα Θοδωρή. Οπότε πιστεύω πως ναι. Λοιπόν, ακούμε κανονικά ελπίζω. Πάμε εδώ αυτό. Πάμε εδώ. Ωραία. Το άστο εδώ. Καλημέρα Τσίλιν, καλημέρα. Λοιπόν. Πώς είστε παιδες? Εδώ στο βίντεο. Βάλουμε εδώ αυτό εδώ. Τώρα έχουν εξάρτητη μουσική. Α, έχει Πίτερ Λέκο σήμερα. Α, Λέκο με Γκύρι, ωραία. Καλύτερα ο Λέκο. Άλλος την άλλη φορά ήταν πιο βαρετός. Ο Λέκο με Γκύρι θα είναι πιο ωραίο δίδυμο. Σήμερα πρόλαβα και την αρχή άδεια. Ωραίος, ωραίος. Τώρα ελπίζω ότι δεν έχουμε delay. Θα το δούμε στην πορεία.
Pressure. I mean, maybe you'll be able to tell us in advance today what critical move will be played on move 16
αυτός
or
γύρω
something,
στο...
but you must be feeling
εδώ ας πούμε.
relatively smug after yesterday where the players effectively fell into your prep.
Θα φτιάξουμε και το poll μας.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it was not a great sign for Gukesh. I would think he should come up with something that I'm not aware of, and definitely something I haven't played before. But you know, there's limited ideas, and actually I know that in that line there was something to hope for. And I think he got seduced with that. There's always, you know, some continuations the opponent can go where he can goes wrong. And sometimes there are such beautiful lines that you get too tempted. And you try something and then it doesn't really work. But yeah, no, it's interesting today with Ding playing white pieces, as Peter mentioned, this 1, c4, e5. It's a territory that allows a lot of creativity.
Ωραία, έτοιμο και το poll.
I'm just not sure if Ding liked the character of
Πολύ καλό τουρνουά γίνεται και στο Gukesh Masters στο St. Louis με συμμετοχή Κόλ Θεοδόρων. Έχετε δει? Δεν έχω δει καθόλου Θοδωρή, δυστυχώς. Αλλά τώρα που το ανέφερες, θα το ελέγξω, αφού είναι και ο Θεοδόρου. Να δούμε και καμιά παρτίδα. Λοιπόν.
Not on move 30, but like on move 1 or 2, and just get it over with.
Yeah, can we move a D
Κάτσε.
or E pawn before move 30? That might change the character of the
Άλλο είναι αυτό, όχι αυτό που με τον Καρουάνα. Άλλο είναι.
Today, just under 10 minutes to go before the game start. Before we do that, though, we caught up with Mike Kind last night, and he's here with Nemo as well. Let's see what he got up to.
Thanks, guys. We are the night before round 10. Why? Because we wanted to get the light show at Gardens by the Bay. And Nemo, you are a tour guide, so what are we experiencing here?
Right now, we're experiencing one of the legendary Gardens by the Bay light shows happening twice a day, every night. And, well, you know, they're playing Christmas songs right now. I know Singapore is not the most Christmassy country in the world, but I still think it's a really beautiful vibe.
And we're not
St. Louis Masters.
But bringing into the action, fa la 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 crunch time. We've got 5 games to go. Ding has an extra white. I think they call that being on the button. You can correct me later if I'm wrong. The big question, is Ding going to push in one of his white games? Nemo, what do you think?
I haven't been feeling that energy from him. That does not mean that he's not going to push.
Άλλο είναι αυτό, ναι.
Maybe he can go all in.
Όχι το US Masters. Άλλο είναι αυτό.
I have no idea, but we do know that they're playing poker in their spare time. Team Ding is Niwa, apparently is the expert. Nemo, we got to get you in on that game, but before we do, let's get to round 10 and see if Ding has got something up his sleeve. Now back to you guys.
Εδώ είμαστε.
Absolutely beautiful stuff there. Thank you very much, Mike and Nemo. Gardens by the Bay.
Αυτό είναι από 3 Δεκεμβρίου μέχρι 8. Α, αύριο τελειώνει αυτό, Οκ, δεν το έχω παρατηρήσει. Έχει καμιά ωραία παρτίδα από τον Νικόλα.
Crickets. Okay, I see how it is. In addition to the music that they play around the gardens, you also have like suspended walkways
Κάτσε να
in
δούμε
between
Θεοδόρου που
the
είναι.
structures that you saw in the background of Mike and Nemo. So you don't just have to be on ground level. You can buy a ticket and go up and walk throughout the light and sound show. It's absolutely amazing.
Α, με τον Καρουάν έφερε ισοπαλία, οκ.
I definitely strongly recommend we head over there. But we're now going to be getting into the chess.
Κέρδισε έναν Άρμαν Μικαέλιαν.
Anish, I'm going to start with you
Έναν
to talk
εντάξει
about a
έχει
prediction for
μεγάλο.
today's game. We mentioned yesterday,
Και
you've already laid the groundwork
δύο,
that
τρεις,
yes, the
τέσσερις,
tensions
έχει
have
5
been rising,
ισοπαλίες,
but there is
2
such a
νίκες
thing
και μία
as
ήττα.
putting too many ideas on the table and sort of overcooking the match a little bit.
Και μένει
Do
να
you
παίξει
still
με έναν
feel that
Andy
way this
Woodward. Α,
morning?
και τελειώνει αυτό,
Well, yeah.
Ωραία.
Again, I think Ding might.
Ναι, ναι, το είδα. Α, είναι rapid.
Οκ.
Okay.
Different direction as the one before where he had white pieces. I think he might want to just play it.
Ωραία, θα το
more,
κοιτάξουμε μετά
today.
να δω
So,
αυτές τις δύο
I'm
νίκες
somehow
του
thinking 1-4
Νικόλα
is the move that,
ή
where
και
he
την
feels
ισοπαλία του με
comfortable
τον
to play.
Καρουάνα βασικά.
So maybe he just told Richard, okay, I'll play
Θα την
D4, you
κοιτάξω.
tell me the next move after. Then Richard said, okay, maybe Trompovsky. Then Ding said, okay, please stop joking. And that's how it started.
Peter, how about yourself? How do you feel that the players might be approaching game number 10 in terms of mentality now that Ding has a couple of games with the white pieces?
Yeah, it's a good question because I think that he has tried all the normal, natural first moves. Yeah, he already tried e4, knight f3, d4, c4.
Τι άνοιγμα λέτε να παίξει σήμερα ο Liren ή Liren βασικά, δεν ξέρω. Άλλοι το λένε Liren, άλλοι το λένε Liren. Μάξι του Gukesh, αυτός λέει Gukesh. Το όνομά του είναι το Gukesh, το παίρνουμε ότι είναι το Dommaraju, έτσι. Πότε έχω καταλάβει. Απλά επειδή είναι πιο δύσκολο να το προφέρει λίγο Dommaraju, έτσι να το λες, Gukesh. Είναι πιο επικρατήσει έτσι. Δεν ξέρω. Τελειώνει και το ελληνικό αύριο, αν θυμάμαι καλά. Για να δω τι γίνεται στο ελληνικό μια στιγμή.
But yeah, going 1d4 is a safe choice.
So, both commentators today
όχι αύριο, ψέματα, έχει ακόμα 2 μέρες. Εντάξει, ναι, πρώτος είναι ο Κούρκουλος, είναι νομίζω αναμενόμενο.
If you head over to chess.com/events, you can participate in Vote Chess on the chess.com website, and there are prizes in store.
Αλλά τι να πρωτοδείς. Λοιπόν, κάτσε να βάλουμε εδώ live chat.
So if you head to the World Championship match, click on today's game.
Νίκη Gukesh μέχρι στιγμής κανένας. Λείπει ο Κωνσταντίνος για να ψηφίσει ο Gukesh.
Our stream might be up there, so it might be underneath that. There you can choose whether it's going to be a win for Gukesh, a win for Ding, or a draw. And up to 20 people
Καλημέρα, Σταύρο.
the correct answer at the end of the day will win big. And when we say win big, $400 worth of Chessable course vouchers as first place is nothing to be sniffed at. It's not just one person who wins as well. There are prizes for up to 20 people. So make sure you get on to chess.com/events.
Έχουμε 4 λεπτά ακόμα. Λογικά τώρα όπου να είναι θα πάει να μας δείξει και τι γίνεται με το μαύρο ίσο.
So you have got a little bit of time,
Ωραία, τώρα πάλι θα τους υπροσθέσω, βάζουμε ένα έτσι, λοιπόν. Στο ελληνικό, ναι, πρώτος είναι ο Κούρκουλος και δεύτερος Καλογρίδης με Αλεξάκη. Μάλιστα. Ο Gukesh πήγε, νάτος έτοιμος είναι, κλασικά. Στην πένα είναι. Είναι λες και πηγαίνει κομμωτήριο κάθε φορά. Να και ο Ding. Λοιπόν, Ding Wish 33, Draw 47, Gukesh 20. Περισσότερο εδώ βλέπω ψηφίζουν Draw πάλι. Σου λέει με όλες αυτές τις οπαλίες. Αλλά στο θέμα Gukesh Liren, πιο πολύ ψηφίζουν Liren. Νομίζω ο Gukesh έχει αρχίσει να χάνει πλέον αυτό που λέγαμε στην αρχή ότι ίσως έχει πλεονέκτημα κτλ. Το χάνει. Λοιπόν, για να δούμε τι λέει ο Μαύρης τώρα.
first, the challenger from India, Gukesh Dommaraju. And from China, the world champion, Ding Liren. The match is tied at 4.5 points each. It has been a scintillating match so far. The players have treated all of us to an incredible set of games, and their fighting spirit is to be absolutely commended as we go into the last 5 games.
Αποφασισμένος μου φαίνεται ο Ding σήμερα.
First move, we have a dignitary from Singapore, Mr. Kon Yin Tong, who is a managing partner of accountancy firm Fu Kon Tan, served as a Sports Singapore council member from 2012 before becoming deputy chairman in 2016 and subsequently chairman in October 2018. Mr. Kon has held roles with Sports Singapore as Finance Committee Chairman and leads the Sports Excellence Scholarship Selection and Approval Committee. Having had a passion for rugby since he was a schoolboy, Mr. Kon currently holds a World Rugby Level 1 coaching certificate and is a volunteer coach. Please welcome the chair at Sports Singapore,
Καλημέρα μου,
Mr.
Κλέη. Καλημέρα, τρελέ μου.
Yin Tong.
Για να δούμε, θα παίξει ε4.
And with that, let the game begin.
Και ξεκινάμε. Άντε να δούμε. Ελπίζω να δούμε καλή παρτίδα σήμερα. Δέλτα 4. Μάλιστα.
All right, the game has started. 1d4
Ωραία.
is indeed on the board. Imagine a world championship where you pick people to make ceremonial first moves for white and black, and the players have to stick with them. That'll be fun. You get to bid to be
Συμμετρικό,
one of the people who gets to choose the openings. B3, A5, then becomes stuck
Αχα,
on the board. Was
δεν
it
παίζει
B7
γάμα
around
4
eight?
εδώ. Πάει για Λονδίνο.
Absolute chaos, but
Ξανά Λονδίνο,
here,
λοιπόν.
joking aside, D4 on the board. We're blitzing out the first moves from the opening. I'm going to hand it over to yourself and Anish. Tell us what's going on in this game.
Λονδίνο.
Well, we actually get another London system. That's kind of a surprise. Well, it's surprise in a sense that Ding is not ready to repeat it. On the other hand, he got a promising kind of position in the very first London situation, and now it's all eyes on Gukesh. Will he repeat that very sharp line with C5, or is he deviating?
Μάλλον δεν θα παίξει γάμα 5 τώρα, πιστεύω. Θα πάει για κάτι διαφορετικό.
I thought he might repeat the London, maybe some different variation of the move order, right? Because you've got these moves E3, C3, knight D2, or bishop E2, and sometimes you can do one order or the other. So perhaps he wants to do a different order today, now that he got some extra information from the previous game in the London. But I didn't quite think of it, and Gukesh, I think, also didn't really expect it. So he's choosing now whether to repeat the exact same system or perhaps go for something else, because there's a lot of different good options.
Ναι. Οκ.
Yes, well, it's
ε6.
psychological, and we have a new move, E6 on the board.
ε3.
The other game featured C5, E3, E6, but it could easily be transposition. For example, if black plays the move C5 here, we are kind of transposing to that game, but now also black gets the other option of deviating with the bishop D6 system, which used to be also very popular.
Ίσως.
Yes, and in fact, in the previous game,
Όχι. Και
Gukesh
παίζει
did
γάμα
something
5.
similar to bishop D6. He just included C5, C3 first. He's back to the same system that he did at that time.
Ναι,
I'm
όχι,
curious now,
επιστρέψαμε.
maybe Ding now wants to go for knight bd2. That would be quite logical to deviate here.
Yeah,
Για
that's
δούμε.
actually,
Θα
I
παίξει
think,
εδώ.
also the officially main move, right? Knight bd2, then queen b6. It was the game that featured between Alireza Firuza and Gukesh in the World Championship match, Knight bd in the candidates in Toronto. Queen b6, rook b1.
Καλημέρα, Σιμπλικ. Ναι, Λονδινάρα σήμερα.
Yeah, exactly. And I actually
Για να
found
δούμε.
that game quite fascinating, and I thought that that is not at all the worst that could happen to white. You get quite a lot of play there, and I think Ding might just think to indeed check him out there. Gukesh also has to
Oh,
deviate. He doesn't have to repeat that exact game. There are also
okay.
other systems there. But now, he plays bishop e2. That's the third move. Then perhaps the
Αρκετά
biggest
πιο
surprise
σπάνια
if
αυτή η
there is in this
κίνηση.
position. And let's see if Gukesh is into the details here.
Yeah, bishop
Αρκετά
e2
πιο
is
σπάνια.
kind of a cautious move. Yeah, white is not trying to confront black at all. Do you have any experience on this bishop e2? It's a move that I can't really recall having really analyzed it.
Yeah, I have a feeling that I sort of saw the move. Somehow Grishuk's name comes into my mind, but maybe it's not here. I'm a little fuzzy on the details because
Καλά,
this
έχει
is not
παιχτεί
my
και από
main
Γκρισού και
repertoire
έχει
for
παιχτεί
black.
και από Ράπορτ.
And
Ο
also
Ράπορτ
never
την
been
έχει
my main
παίξει,
weapon
βλέπω.
for white either. So I am a little fuzzy on the
Οπότε
details, but I am sure that
αυτό είναι
Gukesh
κίνηση από Ράπορτ.
isn't, and Gukesh
Την
is
έχει
definitely
παίξει.
prepared for this. This is the kind of surprises you expect from Ding. Exactly this kind of surprises in these sort of lines. And it's one of the moves. So I suspect that Gukesh, after some thought and recollection, will show us what his preparation is. And to be honest, optically speaking, I think Queen b6. Queen b6. But he just goes for bishop d6. Very solid.
Τι
Yeah,
έπαιξε.
very solid, but I think that white's
Ah.
idea is somehow to play d takes e5. Is
Τρίτη
that
κίνηση.
an
Λοιπόν, δεν
option,
υπάρχουν
or
πολλές παρτίδες.
you
Υπάρχει
might
παρτίδα
have
του
to-
Ράπορτ
yeah,
εδώ.
that
Υπάρχει του
should be fine
Πραγνανάντα.
Yeah, must be
bishop
takes and
move.
c4. Yeah. Must be, but you know, after takes and
Κυρίως αυτές
c4,
σε μεγάλο
we'll
επίπεδο.
get some sort of a QGD theory with the bishop on e2, which is relatively
Ο Ράπορτ
harmless. In
στην
terms of
παρτίδα
QGD,
έφαγε εδώ.
maybe in terms of the London is
Εναντίον του
promising. It's all-
Σάνκλαντ
also relative.
το 19.
Yes,
Για να δούμε γιατί
exactly.
ήταν αυτό.
It's kind of a slight surprise for me.
Α,
that,
ήταν rapid
Gukesh
παρτίδα
has
όμως. Champion Showdown
almost
Rapid.
blitzed out bishop d6. He did
Στο Σεντ
take
Λουίς στην
some
Αμερική,
kind of,
μάλιστα.
1 minute think or maybe even
Rapid
less.
παρτίδα.
But it signals to me
Το
that he
Πραγνανάντα
knew
είναι
of
πιο
bishop e2.
πρόσφατη.
You don't play
Το
such a
καλοκαίρι,
comical move
όχι
like
αυτό
bishop
το
d6
περσινό.
instantly,
Και αυτό Rapid
unless you
όμως.
know that this is your prep.
Σε Rapid έχει
Yeah, but
παιχτεί αυτή.
I'm
Βλέπω.
not at all
Μάλιστα.
surprised. I think Gukesh must have been prepared for this. Ding's perhaps best game last year was in the London system, in the last World Championship match. So I'm sure that Gukesh has looked at all the Londons and the different move orders and c3, knight d2, bishop e2, bishop b5. There's all of these different orders, and this is exactly the kind of area where Ding would be looking at before the match. So I do expect Gukesh to really be into the details here from the opening. But Ding shouldn't be too unhappy either, I think. This
Λοιπόν.
position, we might get some sort of symmetry.
Ανάγκη Κωνσταντίνος. Καλημέρα Κωνσταντίνε. Ισοπαλία κλασικά. Για να δούμε. Νίκη Gukesh έχει ψηφίσει κανένας. Κανένας.
Let's see what happens. Perhaps Ding also mostly expected Queen b6, which is the more principled approach.
Οκ, τρώει εδώ.
Yeah,
Ακριβώς
yeah,
όπως
this
έπαιξε
is
και ο
bishop
Ράπορτ
c5
και ο
on the
Πραγνανάντα.
board already. Makes a lot of sense. Black has committed the move bishop d6, so he's losing one extra
Και
tempo,
τώρα,
but,
σε ό,τι παρτίδα υπάρχει,
as I
έχει
already
παιχτεί ροκέ.
highlighted, this bishop e2 extra isn't that,
Οπότε το αναμενόμενο τώρα είναι το ροκέ.
yes, it's a nice developing move because white will be able to castle immediately, but in order to fight for something, white will need to challenge black with the move c2, c4, after which we are getting a symmetrical kind of
Και μετά γάμα 4, μάλιστα.
Yeah, I can see that, let's say, after direct c4, knight c6, knight c3, or c4 castle, knight c3, knight c6,
Κάτι
we just
τέτοιο.
get some transposition to the QGD system, where white has played move bishop e2 in a tabia where much more critical moves are delaying the development of the bishop, like a3, queen c2, and rook d1, and all that. So I could sort of see why Gukesh would be quite happy with this direction. You get some sort of a very solid version of the QGD, where probably black can equalize reasonably comfortably, but at least at least the play is very simple for white, and the white doesn't have any risk here at all. And I think the character of play suits Ding more
Και
than
τώρα
suits Gukesh.
ο Liren σκέφτεται λίγο.
Gukesh is much better prepared than
Λογικά είναι στην προετοιμασία του, αφού υπάρχει και παρτίδα του Ράπορτ εδώ.
Yeah, for me always the big question that how deep you are preparing a line like this. Yeah, for example, you assume that it's kind of
Ο
harmless.
Gukesh είναι για να παίρνει
The
πλεονέκτημα,
computer shows
όχι
that
να
it's kind of
νικάει.
harmless. Then
Κοίτα, θα σου πω.
is there any real reason to
Πριν
go
ξεκινήσουν
to
οι
study
παρτίδες,
further
νομίζω
because there are
ότι
so many other problems,
ο
yeah, that
Gukesh ήταν
require
το
much
φαβορί,
attention.
ενδεχομένως.
with the black
Τώρα
pieces
πια
in,
όχι.
right?
Yes.
Και κάτι τέτοιο είπε και ο Κάρλσεν, ότι
No,
πλέον
you're
ο
right, but
Gukesh
I
δεν
do
έχει
guess that,
το
you know,
πλεονέκτημα που
he
μπορεί να
has
είχε
set up
πριν
in mind. At least he decided
ξεκινήσουν
that
οι
the knight
παρτίδες.
from d8 goes to c6 or d7, He's looked at whether he goes dc4, and move whatever 9 or 11, and I guess he has looked at this a little bit.
Αυτό
But
δεν
of
έχει
course,
καταφέρει να
it
πάρει
must
κάτι
be also
παραπάνω.
fuzzy in his memory, because indeed there are so many other things that you have to remember, and this is not the most scary line of all. So I guess we won't see a deep prep here from either side. And I think Ding is also just here as well, because Ding must have looked a lot more into queen b6. I think this is the computer's first choice, and then after queen b6, white has maybe some sharp options to sacrifice the pawn. Probably that was the main area of prep. And bishop d6 was like, okay, here you take on c5, 3 more moves were written down, you are slightly better, and good luck, sort of. I think Ding also doesn't go very deep in positions that are risk-free and slightly better, because he doesn't feel the need to. I guess Ding prepares much more for the sharp continuations.
Yes, I actually like
Καλημέρα Βασίλη, καλημέρα.
how you described, that it's one of the big conceptual.
Βασίλη, ελπίζω ψήφισες Gukesh, έτσι. Γάμα 4 θα ήταν ωραία, ναι. Και έπαιξε γάμα 4. Δεν έκανε ροκέ. Οκ. Έπαιξε γάμα 4. Καθυστέρησε λοιπόν το ροκέ.
White plays the move knight c3 and potentially going for this d takes c4 and b6 bishop b7 kind of development, and maybe that knight from b8 can go to d7 once we traded queens. Those are these small little details that I also would prefer to kind of clarify already in my preparation.
Yes, and from white point of view, there are also different orders, and he started with c4. I think he might want to discourage d takes c4, because now after dc queen d8, black loses the right to castling, which is not at all an issue maybe also. So that's also to be talked about, because you have these things in the Queen's Gambit accepted where you move the king, but without the queens it doesn't matter, king is anyway in the center. For some reason he started with c4, some move order subtlety, I guess. Maybe also there is an idea, I can imagine if black goes like knight c6, and then after c4 maybe there's an idea to go d4 sometimes, so maybe he wants to prevent.
Και τον έβαλε σκέψη στο Gukesh.
Gukesh is thinking, maybe also Gukesh wasn't expecting c4 first and is trying to see if he can transpose back to his prep, or if there are some differences.
Μπορεί να κάνει ροκέ και να περιμένει.
I have the feeling that Gukesh is already on his own. It's his first World Championship match.
Έκανε ροκέ τελικά. Οκ.
I think he's super excited, super thrilled. He should be ready for 1c4, 1d4, all kinds of lines.
Και στο checkmate θα μπλοκάρει με β.
Bother with this line. You just believe, okay, I'm playing the World Championship match. I'm a very strong player. If my opponent is just playing a very solid line,
αυτό το check.
I will be able to handle. But okay, he has actually made up his mind quite quickly and opted for short castles.
Yeah, I mean, perhaps the truth is somewhere in the middle, like he hasn't spent ages on it, but there is like one line written in his file, and that line goes like
Καλημέρα Ελευθερία.
And the knights somewhere, then
ωραία, ροκέ και ο
Liren,
οπότε επιστρέφουμε στα γνωστά, έτσι, στις παρτίδες που υπάρχουν του Rapport και του Pragnananda. Εκεί στη μία είχαμε β6 και στην άλλη ύπογα 6 από τα μαύρα μετά. Έχουμε αυτό και αυτό.
Yeah, one of these typical things that as a second, your job is of course to make sure that you are covering all kinds of sidelines, even the harmless ones, and you put it in the file. And then it's up to the player.
Τώρα μπορεί και να φάει εδώ αν θέλει. Τώρα αν φαγωθεί Βασίλισσα τρώγεται με τον πύργο, οπότε δεν έχει θέμα. Θα μπορούσε τώρα να φάει κιόλας αν θέλει.
Here I have to remember there are millions of details, and yes, it might be in the file, and he blitzes out the move knight c6. I'm not exactly a fan of knight c6 because I'm not a Queen's Gambit type of player. I'm more like a Queen's Indian, and Queen's Indian is always based on this b6, bishop b7, knight bd7 setup.
Εκτός αν συνεχίσουν την ανάπτυξη. Αυτό...
Yeah, I guess we might also not see the bishop develop to b7 at all.
Έπαιξε υπό γάμα 6 τελικά. Μάλιστα.
Connected to e5 when the bishop just goes develops, into an entirely different diagonal. So yeah, knight c6 it can't be bad for sure. Unlike the QGD positions, the knight hasn't yet.
Που είναι η παρτίδα του Rapport.
Maybe knight b to d2 has some merit.
Α, και υπάρχει και παρτίδα με τον Νικόλα, με τον Θεοδόρου σε αυτή τη θέση.
DC knight c4, the knight can jump potentially to d6. I remember the
Για να δω.
somehow I remember one game.
Ναι.
I don't really know why that game came to mind, but I remember my friend Max.
Υπάρχει μία με τον Αρονιάν, ο οποίος είχε κερδίσει τον Ράπορτ σε αυτή την παρτίδα. Gibraltar Masters λέει το 2018. Μάλιστα. Και ο Θεοδόρου είχε την ίδια θέση με τον Σαμάντ.
Yeah, and Ding has opted for knight c3. He develops it.
Τι είναι αυτό, Σαρία Masters 2024.
C3 is the most natural, but I really like the way how you described. Yeah,
Το Μάιο.
actually, thanks to this move order, one has always to think about all the finesses. Yeah, and this.
Και τι έχουμε εδώ, πως γάμα3 μετά
Actually, a very smart way, but
και δέλτα τρώει γάμα4.
Gukesh keeps on blitzing after knight c3, opted for d takes c4 kind of instantly. This has to be preparation.
Yeah.
Ναι, ο Gukesh μάλλον γνωρίζει.
This idea of g4 that it's of course not working because of knight a4. That's the typical thing that sometimes eludes me. But of course d4 knight a4 it's just losing.
Ο Ράπορτ εδώ τρώει με αξιωματικό. Και αυτό θα κάνει μάλλον και ο Liren. Α3. Συμφωνώ μαζί σου 100%.
And I suspect that this is some sort of a theoretical position.
Στο Α3.
It must be a transposition from a QGD. I'm pretty sure it must be some kind of transposition.
Yes, you are actually very nicely highlighting that. Yeah, if White recapture on c4, then he has also lost the tempo. Exactly the same scenario happened to Black.
Ναι, αλλά είναι η καλύτερη κίνηση.
Quickly.
Νομίζω να μην φάει εδώ.
Bishop e2, Black played the move bishop d6, and this was exactly the moment when White captured on c5, so Black also lost the tempo with his bishop. It's a common theme in this line. So d takes
Άρα Κωνσταντίνε. Ανταλλαγή βασίλισσας. Ο Ding νομίζω θα κρατήσει τις βασίλισσες. Νομίζω θέλει να κρατήσει τις βασίλισσες ο Ding για την ώρα μέσα. Λογικά θα τις κρατήσει. Ή τουλάχιστον δεν θα κάνει ο ίδιος την ανταλλαγή. Άμα την κάνει, μετά ο Gukesh, οκ. Αλλά έχει καλύτερη ανάπτυξη μετά ο Λευκός. Πρέπει να δεις που θα αναπτύξει τον αξιωματικό αυτό για να μπει και ο πύργος στο παιχνίδι. Μένεις λίγο πίσω στην ανάπτυξη. Ανταλλαγή βασίλισσα προποίηση. Αφού στο γάμα 8 που αναπτύσσεται συνήθως σε τέτοιες θέσεις. Στο Β7 βλέπω κυρίως.
I think Ding happy, maybe spectators a bit less, but we'll see.
Yes, exactly. I also have this feeling that this type of position is.
Αλλά αργή η ανάπτυξή του βλέπω. Ναι. Θα πρέπει να γίνουν πολλές ανταλλαγές για να παιχτεί κάποια στιγμή ε5 και να αναπτυχθεί εδώ. Αλλά συνήθως ναι, αφού παιχτεί κάτι τέτοιο εδώ. Λοιπόν, ωραία, έφαγε στο γάμα4 ο Liren, εντάξει, αναμενόμενο. Δεν νομίζω ότι δεν θα έτρωγε.
Take it on d1, then I'm getting extra tempo, rook f d1, and this looks very promising. Then White follows up with.
Κοίτα τώρα, λογικά ο Liren είναι η προετοιμασία του με το Ράπορτ, έτσι, που έχει παρτίδα αυτός τέτοια, την οποία βέβαια έχει χάσει από τον Αρονιάν, αλλά φαντάζομαι κάτι θα έχουν ετοιμάσει. Δεν ξέρω μέχρι που γνωρίζει ο Gukesh, γιατί φαίνεται να γνωρίζει.
You know, I'll be honest with you. I think that I thought that this position is slightly better for White. Because I was trying to remember that I know this position from that QGD line.
Άμα αλλάξει βασίλισσα, πιθανό ισοπαλία. Δεν νομίζω θα τα αλλάξουν τώρα τόσο νωρίς βασίλισσες, ξέρω εγώ, θα δούμε.
But hang on, then wait a second, then let us, because anyway the game is a little bit slow, let's just go from the Queen's Gambit move order to understand what you really have.
Αλλά άμα ανταλλάξει βασίλισσες τώρα ο Gukesh, βοηθάει τον Liren στην ανάπτυξη. και παίρνει και τον έλεγχο της καθέτου, δεν νομίζω ότι θα φάει.
Bishop e2. I don't think that knight c6 dc is the way. I think the way to solve problems here is to go like dc, bishop c4. At least one.
Είναι 14 γύρι, STL. Οπότε μένουν ακόμα 4 παιχνίδια.
Definitely with the knight on c6 instead of castle, but yeah, I think this is sort of the way for black. Like you don't exactly transpose into this like so it's
Εκτός κι αν κάνει κάποιος, ξέρω εγώ, 3 νίκες σε ρί τώρα και φτάσει στους 7,5. Το οποίο εντάξει είναι μάλλον απίθανο να συμβεί.
Ruined pawn structure and it should sort of equalize each other, these factors. So I don't think we just transposed. We sort of have a weird position that doesn't really occur in theory.
Οπότε κατά πάσα πιθανότητα έχουμε ακόμα. Πάνε αλλάξει Βασίλισσα, ο μαύρος δεν θα είναι καλός γιατί μπαίνει ο αξιωματικός γάμα 7. Η στήλη θα είναι του λευκού για πάντα. Ναι, υπάρχει και το αξιωματικό στο γάμα 7 όπως λες. Και αναπτύσσεις τον πύργο του με τέμπο, έτσι. Του δίνεις τη στήλη με τέμπο. Και έχεις ακόμα αυτό το θέμα. Πού θα αναπτύξεις αυτόν τον αξιωματικό, ούτως ώστε να ενώσεις και εσύ τους πύργους σου κτλ. Θα έχει καλύτερο παιχνίδι ο λευκός. Δεν θα το αλλάξει, πιστεύω. Άλλο σε αυτή την παρτίδα με τον Αρονιάν. Λοιπόν, κάτσε να γυρίσω λίγο πίσω. Λοιπόν, στην παρτίδα με τον Αρονιάν παίχτηκε όντως αυτό. Τα μαύρα όντως ανταλλάξανε. Και κέρδισε κιόλας ο Αρονιάν εδώ, έτσι.
Slightly worse, but again, even so, still, of course, position is very, very safe, and it can never be too bad. Yeah, like no matter what happens.
Μετά έπαιξε εδώ πέρα.
Develop the bishop to d7, it cannot be that terrible, but a little bit nicer for white.
Είχε φέρει τον αξιωματικό του πίσω. Είχε παίξει τέτοια. Κάπως έτσι είχε παίξει ο Αρονιάν εδώ από ό,τι βλέπω. Και μετά έφερε τον αξιωματικό εδώ και ένωσε τους πύργους. Και κατάφερε να κερδίσει.
The decisive game in the Madrid Candidates 2022, which featured also very symmetrical and very similar.
Ο οποίος στο τέλος πήγαινε έτσι αυτό και μετά έκανε ένα μπλάντερο. Ο Ράπορτ από ό,τι βλέπω. Στο φινάλε. Είχαν πάει σε φινάλε. Αλλά είχε καλύτερη θέση ο Αρονιάν ούτως ή άλλως. Είχε δημιουργήσει ελεύθερο. Τέλος πάντων. Κάπως έτσι είχε εξελιχθεί αυτή του Ράπορτ. Η οποία παρτίδα λογικά είναι μες στην προετοιμασία του Liren όμως. Πρέπει να γίνει ανταλλαγή βασιλισσών από τον Gukesh γιατί αλλιώς θα την κάνει ο Liren και θα έχει πρόβλημα. Για να δούμε. 14 είναι με κλασικό χρόνο. Και μετά θα πάμε στα rapid, κατά πάσα πιθανότητα από ό,τι φαίνεται.
Yes, he's tricking that his knight is still on b1, but I'm gonna go dc and b6, bishop b7, and be as solid as possible. But I might be also mixing things up.
No, I think you're probably right, because I think what he could have mixed up is actually because I saw that the website engine, which is also quite strong these days, when following broadcast, it says that white maybe should have gone knight d2 instead of castle. And maybe against knight d2 you should go knight c6, you know? And against castle you should go for a different setup. Yeah, b6 as you mentioned is one move, but maybe also just d6, d takes c4 is also an option right away with the knight still on b8. Just trade queens.
Λοιπόν, εδώ και αυτή την παρτίδα του παρακανόντα.
Yeah, I think something went a little wrong with the move orders there for Gukesh and
στην παρτίδα του Πραγκανάντα δεν είχαν αλλάχτεί οι βασίλισσες.
Zero risk, completely zero risk, and also one that really suits him well. As you mentioned, that game against Hikaru, the important game that got him actually.
Ενώ στις δύο του Ράπορτ είχαν γίνει ανταλλαγές. Στην παρτίδα που έγινε η ανταλλαγή κέρδισαν τα μαύρα, στην παρτίδα που δεν έγινε κέρδισαν τα λευκά. Δηλαδή ο Πραγκανάντα κέρδισε. Έγινε, δηλαδή η ανταλλαγή βασίλισσες έγινε πολύ πιο μετά.
Yes, if black equalizes, then there is nothing to play with. But if something goes wrong and white gets that little advantage, that little initiative going, then it might be a very unpleasant defensive task for the defender. So lot to look forward to. Actually, I'm now much more excited than like 5 minutes ago. Ever since you highlighted this finesse, yeah, that we are actually not transposed to perfect Queen's Gambit scenario for black. There's something to play for with white.
Yes, and definitely the fact that Gukesh's thinking is also adding optimism to those rooting for Ding, right? Like if you
Τώρα ο
play
Gukesh
instantly with
μέχρι
this
που να
whole
ήξερε, δεν
mental
ξέρω.
prep, it's all figured
Προφανώς
out.
τώρα για να
If
σκέφτεται
that's his
τόσο,
thinking now, it signals that yes, actually,
δεν ήταν και τόσο.
he's not completely into the
Κάπως
details,
ήξερε τη θέση, αλλά όχι
he's actually in a
απόλυτα.
serious thought right
Λογικά
now.
ο Liren την ξέρει καλύτερα.
7 minutes on this move, and
Λόγω
now
του
he has
rapport.
his head in his hands, and he's definitely trying to solve his problems right now.
Μετά από
Yeah, big
Βασίλισσα
question. Yeah.
τρώει
What
δέλτα
should you
1,
choose? For example, what is your
πήγος
gut
τρώει
feeling?
δέλτα
Like,
1,
when do you do A6 or
αξιωματικός
what kind of main scenarios black has to watch out for
ε7,
with all these queen trades? Do you go queen e7, a6 or in which move order?
αξιωματικός γάμα 7.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think in general this move queen e7 I'm a little
Φαντάζομαι θα
skeptical
παίξεις
always
κάτι
because I'm
τέτοιο
always a little skeptical of pushing e5 in these
για να
positions
παίξεις
because that
εδώ,
weakens a lot of light squares.
για να ενώσεις τους
So
πύργους
that
σου.
plan with queen e7 e5, which is often kind of good, I find it often a little risky and unnecessary. Yeah,
Τα
so
λευκά
queen
ίσως
d6
προσπαθήσουν να
is
διπλώσουν
gradual
εδώ,
with knight on c6 somehow,
ίσως.
as you mentioned, it feels also a bit off. Yeah, I'm honestly like I would be looking
Ίσως
at
προσπαθήσουν να διπλώσουν εδώ,
at trades. So I would
να φέρουν
try
τον
to
ύπο
simplify the
εδώ
position either with queen takes d1 or with knight
και
h5.
βλέπουμε.
Because I think that even if I remain a bit passive, if I trade the
Κάπως
right
έτσι.
pieces, it should sort of gradually
Αλλά δεν έχω κάποια
gradually
προτίμηση
simplify,
και οι δύο μου φαίνονται ok.
head towards
Δηλαδή τα μαύρα το
simple.
μόνο
So I
που
would
με
be
ενοχλεί
looking
είναι
at
αυτό.
either
Δηλαδή άμα
like that, I
καταφέρουν
would
τα
be
μαύρα
planning and create imbalances
να
here with
παίξουν
like
αυτή την
queen
κίνηση,
e7
νομίζω
and
είναι
I
εντάξει.
think the imbalances is not, they're not the approach here, this position.
But okay, then let me ask you one other question.
Και αυτός ο
Okay,
ύπος
you trade
ενοχλητικός,
the
εντάξει,
queen.
ναι, μπορεί να γίνει ανταλλαγή.
Queen takes d1. Rook f takes d1. Then why aren't you scared? For example, if I would be playing against you, I would know that Anish is sitting opposite to me. He has a symmetrical position, a position there is some life in it. I would be very scared to defend this.
Δεν ξέρω αν μιλήσεις με κανέναν γιατρό, το ρώτα μου ότι έχεις γιατρό.
No, of course, I'll be also scared against you, Peter. We'll be both really scared. The problem is that we were already scared to move earlier. Like at least here we are scared, but we have an endgame. So that's the good thing. And yeah, no, we are in deep thoughts, and I think
Για να δω λίγο
yeah, we need John.
το
We need
poll.
your help.
Έχουμε 25
Tell us,
ψήφους. Νίκη Liren 56. Για να
do you
δούμε.
think today's
Σοπαλία
strategy
36.
will
Νίκη
finally
Gukesh 8
break through
μόλις.
and achieve success with this approach of playing it safe?
Thank you, Anish. First of all, I'm gonna have John. I need your help. Anish Giri, like tattooed on me somewhere. because I
Λοιπόν,
never
νομίζω
thought I'd hear
ότι
those words in my life. But
πιέζεται τώρα
if
λίγο ο
I'm
Gukesh,
being
δεν
honest, in
γνωρίζει καλά τη
practice,
θέση.
this looks really interesting. We started with the opening and we thought, oh, is this
Οπότε,
happening again? But by move
δεν
10
θυμάμαι,
in
μέχρι
previous
τώρα
game,
έχουμε δει
we
κάτι
had
τέτοιο
got
να
queen
σκέφτεται
on
στο άνοιγμα
f3, if I
περισσότερο ο
remember
Gukesh από τον
correctly.
Liren. Νομίζω
The
όχι.
position in the
Νομίζω είναι η
center of
πρώτη
the board
παρτίδα
was
που το
still very
βλέπουμε αυτό, έτσι
closed
δεν
up.
είναι?
This is going to lead Peter into
Όχι,
a
όχι,
very
sorry, δεν είναι οι
different
θέσεις τους. Οι
style
θέσεις
of
τους είναι
fighting in
αυτές,
the middle
Σταύρο.
game than we saw in the earlier game. It's not going to be a repeat, possibly not even close to a
Η
repeat.
θέση είναι αυτή.
Yes, not at all. And one scenario that Ding can be very happy with. If he really
Από ό,τι
gets
βλέπω
the
δεν έχουμε
chance to press, he might be
ιδιαίτερο
able to
delay στο
press for
stream.
free.
Πρέπει
Exactly
να είναι
a
πολύ
match
μικρό
to
το
perfect
delay
match
σήμερα.
scenario in a World
Πάση
Championship
4
match, you know,
δευτερόλεπτα
that
ίσως.
you're able to pose problems to your opponent and at the same time you know that nothing can happen to you.
Τίποτα, να είσαι
So
καλά.
Ding
Μίλησα
is
με πολλούς,
chilling
αλλά
in the
άκρη δεν
dressing
βρήκαν.
room, as we can
Το θέμα
see,
είναι,
still
Κωνσταντίνο, εμείς
continuing
δεν
to
βρίσκουμε
support
άκρη με
our
τους
meme
γιατρούς πλέον.
generation activities. Much
Όχι
appreciated,
εκείνοι με
Ding.
εμάς.
Aiming to play effectively for 2 results if possible, if there's no risk, and it's a win if Gukesh messes up or a draw otherwise. That is likely to be what Ding is aiming for today. So while we settle in for a deep think to consider what to do next, let's take a look at another game changer in addition to the 2 sat at the chessboard here, and that, of course, is Chess Up 2, which has just been released. Chess Up, for those...
Για να δω λίγο. Λοιπόν, στην παρτίδα με τον Μπαργκανάντα που δεν έγινε ανταλλαγή βασιλισσών. Κάτσε να γυρίσω λίγο πίσω. Λοιπόν. Αλλά πήγε διαφορετικά εκείνη. Είχε πάει διαφορετικά. Γιατί είχε παίξει Β6, ναι. Είχε παίξει Β6, δεν είχε φέρει τον ύπο αυτόν. Ήταν ακόμα εδώ. Οπότε πρώτα ανέπτυξε τον αξιωματικό, μετά είχε γίνει το φάγωμα κτλ. Ήταν λίγο διαφορετική η θέση. Και δεν ανταλλάχθηκαν βασίλισσες. Λοιπόν, στην παρτίδα με το rapport. Στην παρτίδα με το rapport μόλις έγινε αυτό. Δεν έπαιξε πρώτα, έπαιξε αυτό. Μετά παίχτηκε αυτό. Και μετά έφερε τον αξιωματικό εδώ πίσω. Τον έφερε εδώ, οπότε αυτός γύρισε πίσω. Και μετά έφερε πύργο εδώ. Αλλά δεν έγιναν άλλες ανταλλαγές. Έγινε το κάρφωμα εκεί. Και μετά έπαιξε εδώ. Είχαν πάει σε μια τέτοια θέση. Την οποία κατάφερε να κερδίσει ο Αρονιάν με τα μαύρα, έτσι. Και όντως, εδώ είχαν ένα σχετικό πλεονέκτημα τα λευκά, από ό,τι φαίνεται. Και όντως είχε παίξει την καλύτερη κίνηση εδώ ο Ράπορτ. Κάτι τέτοιο ίσως, κάτι τέτοιο το έχει προετοιμάσει λογικά ο Liren σήμερα. Και το σκέφτεται το Gukesh, γι' αυτό δεν ανταλλάζει τις βασίλισσες. Και αναγκαστικά μετά είχαμε αυτή την ανταλλαγή. Και έμεινε με το ζεύγος των αξιωματικών ο Ράπορτ. Αλλά παρόλα αυτά έχασε. Κάτσε να δω. Ποιο σημείο έτσι. Πολύ μετά πήρε το προβάδισμα. Τα μαύρα πολύ μετά πήραν το προβάδισμα. Εντάξει, οκ. Ding chilling. Ναι, σήμερα όντως είναι ding chilling. Έφαγε και το παγωτάκι του. Να είσαι καλά, Σεραφείμ, σε πρώτα αρχιεπίσκοπο, λέει. Δηλαδή εδώ όντως εγώ θα προτιμήσω όντως τα λευκά, αλλά και για αρκετές κινήσεις είχε το πλεονέκτημα ο Ράπορτ, αλλά μετά κάπως κατάφερε και τον εγκλώβησε ο Αρονιάν με αυτούς τους δύο ύπους. Λοιπόν, να αποστάρω το γκρουπάκι στο lichess. Παιδιά, όσοι δεν έχετε μπει εδώ, μισό λεπτό. Όσοι δεν έχετε μπει και έχετε λογαριασμό στο lichess, μπορεί να μπείτε εδώ. Έχουμε φτιάξει ένα γκρουπάκι για να κάνουμε κάποια στιγμή κάποιο τουρνουά ή και γενικά να παίζουμε μεταξύ μας και ούτω καθεξής. Θα φτιάξουμε έτσι μια κοινότητα. Ναι, ο Ράπορτ είναι που κάνουν την προετοιμασία κτλ. Οπότε προφανώς σε αυτή τη θέση ο Ράπορτ την ξέρει και την έχει παίξει. Είχε παίξει και σε μια άλλη παρτίδα, όχι μόνο μεταξύ του Αρονιάν και μια άλλη που ήταν με λίγο διαφορετική θέση βέβαια, με τον Σάνκλαντ. Απλώς εκεί δεν είχε γίνει αυτή η ανταλλαγή. Εδώ. Ήταν κάπως διαφορετική. Δηλαδή είχε παίξει α6. Ήταν κάπως διαφορετικά. Ο άλλος είχε φέρει τον πύργο εδώ και μετά παίχτηκε κάτι τέτοιο, νομίζω. Κάπως έτσι πρέπει να ήταν. Κάπως έτσι εξελίχθηκε εκείνη. Αν θυμάμαι σωστά. Αν το βλέπω βασικά σωστά και αν το θυμάμαι. Ναι, κάπως έτσι. Αλλά όπως και να έχει, δηλαδή είναι θέση που την γνωρίζει ο Ράπορτ, οπότε είναι προφανώς στην προετοιμασία του Ding και την γνωρίζει καλά. Τώρα δεν ξέρω ο Gukesh, γιατί ο Gukesh φάνηκε μέχρι ένα σημείο όντως να γνωρίζει τι γίνεται. Τώρα έχει ξοδέψει κάποιο χρόνο. Μάλλον δεν τη θυμάται και τόσο καλά και επειδή γνωρίζει ότι ο Liren γνωρίζει, προσπαθεί να σκεφτεί τώρα πώς μπορεί να συνεχίσει. Οπότε είναι η πρώτη παρτίδα που μάλλον έχουμε αντιστροφή του χρόνου. Οπότε νομίζω αυτό θα δώσει καλό πλεονέκτημα στον Liren σήμερα. Για να δούμε, θα έχουμε ανταλλαγή βασιλισσών ή όχι. Λοιπόν, αυτό είναι εδώ, αυτό είναι εδώ. Αυτό τώρα δεν το θέλουμε. Δεν έπαιξε ακόμα, Προσπαθεί να θυμηθεί, βλέπεις. Τώρα νομίζω πιο πολύ προσπαθεί να θυμηθεί παρά να κάνει υπολογισμό. Κάτι τέτοιο μου βγάζει ο Gukesh. Η τα 6 θα έπαιζα ως μαύρος. Ναι, για να φέρεις αξιωματικό και βλέποντας και κάνοντας. Και εγώ κάτι τέτοιο μάλλον θα έπαιζα. Όχι κάτι τέτοιο. Και εγώ μάλλον έτσι. Δεν θα έτρωγα βασίλισσες. Δεν θα ήθελα να πάω σε αυτή τη θέση. Νομίζω θα νιώθω πολύ άβολα. Να έχει τον έλεγχο και εγώ να πρέπει μετά να παίξω αυτό. Αλλά θα νιώθω λίγο άβολα. Και ενδεχομένως δεν θα σκεφτόμουν να παίξω κάτι τέτοιο. Να φέρω πίσω τον αξιωματικό και να κάνω κάτι τέτοιο. Πολύ δύσκολο. Λοιπόν, ο Gukesh ακόμα σκέφτεται, ο Liren έφυγε. Νομίζω είναι ευχαριστημένος από το άνοιγμα σήμερα.
If you haven't decided what you're going to do here before the game, then yeah, you're going to take a long thing. And I think he is out of book. He is choosing. I guess Queen takes D1 is really not the
Προφανώς σκέφτεται ότι αυτό, άμα φάει εδώ, σκέφτεται ότι σίγουρα μετά θα τον μπλέξει ο Liren, ότι είναι 100% στην προετοιμασία. Οπότε προφανώς σκέφτεται κάτι άλλο. Και αυτό ξέρει ότι είναι στην προετοιμασία. Γι' αυτό σκέφτεται κάτι διαφορετικό τώρα. Αλλά τι διαφορετικό μπορεί να παίξεις. Αυτό δεν είναι άσχημη κίνηση. Αν χτυπήσεις εδώ. Μπορεί reverse σήμερα ο Liren.
Gukesh knows these type of positions and he knows that white is just a little bit better and he probably strongly dislikes what's happening and choosing the plan right now.
Yeah, the names that came to my mind during the break actually was that Karpov, Kramnik, Carlsen, and you. These four names came to my mind that you guys are expert of this symmetrical stuff. You did praise me that I'm also very good with little advantages. That's true, but
θα κάνω ένα refresh το stream εδώ να δω κάτι.
I can get a slightly microscopic better position inside e4. I'm extremely happy. but I have always struggled a bit with
Και το
D4
α6
microscopic
παίζεται.
advantages because it's
Για να
not in
παίξεις
my
μετά
blood. All these pieces are
β5,
not exactly in my
να
blood.
χτυπήσεις τον αξιωματικό και να έχεις
So
πάλι
I
αυτό.
would really like to listen to you that how do you approach this position? For example, okay, let me try to be black. I will try to make some natural moves. Okay, let me play a6 just to see how you continue with white.
Yeah, Peter, you put a lot of pressure on me. Honestly, I never know what I'm doing. I'm just cluelessly putting my rooks to the center usually and hoping that it works out. Well, yeah, I guess after a6 as well. I mean, the first thing that would come to mind is queen e2, and somewhere down the road, if you kick my bishop, maybe bishop d3, knight e4 is the kind of idea that that Ding has played also against Hikaru in that game.
Είναι κρίσιμη
Another
η κίνηση τώρα.
thing to note is that I personally
Ενδεχομένως κάτι τέτοιο θα είχε νόημα, Κωνσταντίνε. Δεν νομίζω ότι είναι κάτι στην προετοιμασία του Liren. Θα τον παραξενέψει λίγο. Δηλαδή, αν θες όντως να παίξεις κάτι τέτοιο, το α6 νομίζω είναι μια τέτοια κίνηση.
Yeah, queen e2, I would
Α,
also be
αυτό
asking,
λένε και εδώ.
is there argument to be made for rook c1? Again, because clearly the move a6 is trying to aim at going b5, bishop b7,
knight
and
b5,
trying to develop. Well, or just this bishop d3 that you highlighted, and then knight e4 with the rook already on c1 could be also some kind of a finesse.
Εγώ μπορεί να παίζα και κάτι τέτοιο όμως.
Yeah, because but maybe there is just the knight b5 tactic or not? Because I do like this rook c1 move. Yeah, no, rook c1, yes. Isn't there b5, knight b5 simply maybe?
Even this, yeah, tactics.
Θα μ' άρεσε πολύ δηλαδή να τα αλλάξω αυτόν τον αξιωματικό με τον ύπο.
Okay, there will be some knight a7 takes bishop a6. Is that a defense?
Θα νιώθω πολύ πιο άνετα με τα μαύρα μετά.
That's the minimum, yeah. Yeah, that's the minimum. Yeah, that's good enough.
Yeah, let's just put it on the board. Yeah, for example, if white trades, everything
Ίσως όντως να χρειαζόταν να τους ξεκούραση. Σίγουρα, Τσελίν. Πολλός να αυτοί στο lichess και έχουν από πίσω 40 μηχανές ανοιχτές, έτσι σχολιάζει και η μάνα μου.
Yeah, so perhaps keeping it in reserve, like you said, bishop d3, and then knight b5 is the threat on the next move.
Πλέον έτσι είναι, Σεραφείμ.
Yeah, knight b5 and knight e4. Actually, yeah, just to put it on the board so that our viewers can appreciate the... I know, even I can't play bishop e7, because then also knight b5 is possible.
Yeah, and these are the kind of lines you're not thrilled with because with black. Because
Έφαγε και παγωτάκι και όλα καλά. Ναι, έφαγε και το παγωτάκι του. Είδε στο βιντεάκι. Μετά από 25 αξιωματικός Είτε5. Ναι, υπάρχει αυτό. Τολμηρό λες το Z6. Είναι λίγο τολμηρό. Δεν ξέρω. Είναι λίγο τολμηρό, βέβαια, αλήθεια είναι. Είναι λίγο τολμηρό.
I guess white could also just go for queen e2 as well.
And then maybe to play the move h6, yeah, setting up this e5 idea just to
ναι,
highlight black pushes e6, e5.
Αν κερδίσει θα είναι meme.
Then bishop g5 is very unpleasant, not just the pin, but also as you highlighted the d5 square, the light squares will be eternally weak. So watch out if black plays the move h6 and he is given one extra move to play e7, e5, e6, e5, that's a completely different story. Then there is some fundament with the knight on f6, pawn h6, queen e7. I intuitively, when I looked at this position that happened after bishop takes e4, I also had the same feeling like Gukesh is an ambitious player, yeah? He's not someone who is trying somehow desperately to...
Αρκετός χρόνος από τον Gukesh, δεν μας έχει συνηθίσει στο άνοιγμα. 20 λεπτά πάνω ο Liren, το ανάποδο έχουμε συνηθίσει. Ενδεχομένως θα έχει πρόβλημα μετά ο Gukesh με το χρόνο,
You can get slightly worse in the middle game. You can get slightly worse in the complicated middle game, in the simple middle game. So I guess it's...
Σκέψου τώρα να έχει πλεονέκτημα χρόνο ο Liren.
You want that worse to look like. Yeah, I think queen e7 is sort of the most double-edged, prideful way of trying to play this position. I was thinking that maybe if you go h6, there is kind of a funny idea in that line after queen e7, queen e2, h... On knight h5 played, actually. Yeah, I like this knight h5 move. Yeah.
Yeah, it was the move that you kept on mentioning a couple of times, and I felt like, okay, I first gonna wait, knight h5 will appear on the board, then we will be going into more details.
Yeah, I really like this idea because I think that in these positions, the symmetrical ones, with the bad bishop on
Λοιπόν,
c8,
έπαιξε ο
whenever
Gukesh.
you get rid
Α,
of the dark squared bishop,
Κωνσταντίνε, έπαιξε το
suddenly,
υποστη τα 5.
yeah, this dark squared bishop is a big issue. I think once you get rid of them, position
Για να
becomes a
δούμε
lot
τώρα
safer for black, and
πώς
you
θα
can
απαντήσει
afford
ο
to go
Liren.
for, you know,
Το
you
οποίο
can always develop the bishop later. I think this dark square bishop, the white
δεν
has,
έχει
it
παιχτεί
is
ποτέ
the
ξανά, έτσι δεν είναι?
the most
Ναι, όχι, είναι
dangerous
καινούρια
piece.
κίνηση στη
The
θέση.
light square bishop is actually quite harmless. Sometimes in these positions they allow this knight f4 e4.
Και ενδεχομένως να βγάζει και τον Liren την προετοιμασία αυτό, Για να δούμε πόσο χρόνο θα του πάρει να απαντήσει.
Well,
Και τι θα
actually,
απαντήσει.
I think that Kramnik won a very impressive game against the young Magnus Carlsen in Dortmund in 2009. And I do remember that it was part of our preparation for the World Championship match against Anand. I was Team Kramnik, and we already back then analyzed it seriously, this knight takes f4, e4, and it was
Έχουμε
never
συνηθίσει
so
τον
easy.
Κινέζο και με λίγο χρόνο στο ρόλο να βρίσκει πολύ καλές κινήσεις. Ναι, το ανάποδο όμως δεν το έχουμε συνηθίσει. Το Gukesh. Νομίζω ο Gukesh θα έχει πρόβλημα. Άμα παίζει πολύ στον χρόνο. Το θέμα είναι τι παίζεις τώρα με τα λευκά, γιατί δεν θες να δώσεις τον αξιωματικό προφανώς.
You have first of all an outpost for the knight on g5. Also you have this f4 f5 idea in the air.
Και το μόνο τετράγωνο που έχεις όντως είναι αυτό εδώ. Δεν υπάρχει άλλο τετράγωνο για να μην τον δώσεις άμεσα. Δεν υπάρχει κάτι άλλο. Α, υπάρχει αυτό. Υπάρχει και αυτό. Α, τον κρατάς και έτσι. Οκ.
Yeah, one thing that I think we have to mention immediately, the most natural move after knight h5 is clearly a move bishop to g5.
Αλλά μόλις απειλείς εδώ που πας μετά.
Simply avoid any kind of knight takes f4 trades.
Μετά άμα πας πίσω το ίδιο πράγμα είναι. Άμα πας εδώ πάλι μπορεί να στον φάει.
So what does black do? I'm assuming the answer should be bishop e7. You highlighted that black is trying to trade the dark bishops in this position. So let me
το μοναδικό για να δοκιμάσω να τον κρατήσει είναι αυτό. Το οποίο πάλι αν παίξει ζ6 πάλι δεν τον κρατάς. Εντάξει, μπορεί να πας εδώ, αλλά...
If you can somehow get that rook from f8 to d8 and then you have time to develop that bishop via d7 to 8,
αλλά και πάλι δεν τον κρατάς, ναι. Και πάλι μπορεί να
γίνει. Especially without the dark square bishops, yeah? Because I think otherwise this bishop e8 setup is kind of passive.
Εντάξει, βέβαια, πάντα αυτή η διαγώνιος δεν είναι και τόσο ωραία για τα μαύρα. Είναι κανένας στο εξωτερικό. Δεν ξέρω, είναι κανείς παιδιά εξωτερικό. Οπότε bishop μπροστά από πιονάκια δεν βάζουμε. Το Λονδίνο όμως έτσι είναι.
Self-evident, you know. I want to just put the bishop on the 8, trade as many pieces as possible, and white's bishop on c4 is extremely.
Εντάξει, δεν είναι ότι άμα δώσει τον. Ότι άμα δώσει τον bishop, ξέρω εγώ, χάνεις ή οτιδήποτε. Αλλά σίγουρα είναι κάτι που θες να κρατήσεις. Πολύ ωραία κίνηση από τον Gukesh.
So I think bishop g5, bishop e7 is sort of the idea for black, like really welcoming the trade with open arms. So I think this most ambitious way of playing is probably queen c2, but maybe black has some concrete way of equalizing there, because at the end of the day, you know, black hasn't done much wrong. But after queen c2, I think the question is on black. Black could also sometimes not rush with the trade. Yeah, maybe you can just play a move like h6, and then you keep that trade in reserve, and you sort of surrounded the bishop.
Ο Κωνσταντίνος που πήγε, δεν σχολίασε το υποστη τα 5.
Position to consider. A lot of options here for both sides.
Yeah, one thing I want to ask that, and I was already highlighting with the arrows as well, that why do you think that queen c2 is so much more natural compared to queen e2? I'm asking you in connection with after knight takes f4, e takes f4, isn't the queen on e2 more actively placed, or you feel like this knight g5 resource will be important, or you also feel like with queen c2 you are maybe putting more pressure on black to capture on f4. What is your kind of inside feeling?
Yeah, no, I think that what made me put queen on c2 is just this sort of broken pattern recognition. Like I am used to the theoretical line where the queen is already on c2. So
Τώρα
I'm
μου
trying to
φαίνεται θα
get
φάει
that,
αρκετό χρόνο και
I
ο
think
Liren
this
σε
is the
αυτή
kind
την
of broken
κίνηση.
pattern recognition that I have. Maybe you're right, and queen on e2 is just better. But I was sort of trying to get to the position that I've sort of seen before. This is like that was the main reason, to be honest. Yeah, could be. I mean, there is some point on queen on c2. No? This knight g5. Okay, it's never really, but it sort of is in the air. And for example, maybe when I put a rook on d1 and then on e1, then like I have each piece on each open file. The queen is there on the c file, the rook is on d file, the other rook is on e file. So maybe it's also fine. There's nobody disturbing each other there, and nobody's in the way. So yeah,
Για κάτσε
I
να
have
βάλω τη
nothing wrong
θέση
with
στο
queen on
stockfish
c2.
να
Also,
δω.
I don't think it's a target to any big knight jumps. Like knight b4 is a waste of time. I'll go indeed
Τι
to e2
προτείνει.
and then I'll kick the knight with a3. I think queen on c2 is alright. I think it's also okay on e2 as well. Yeah, that makes it all very subtle, and Ding definitely has choice here. And yeah, no wonder he is thinking about all the things, because I guess
Υπό
after queen c2 also
ε4
queen e2 you have
προτείνει.
to consider also what is the implication of knight f4
Αυτό
ef
προτείνει ο
knight d4
υπολογιστής.
maybe. Maybe black can by force
Και μόλις σε φάει εδώ.
trade a bunch of things and equalize. So you have to calculate all these
Όχι,
things.
δεν προτείνει αυτό,
It can
λάθος.
get quite concrete.
Yes, let's take a look
Αυτό
at knight
προτείνει.
d4. It looks like
Και
a
μόλις
very
φας
simple move.
εδώ.
Yeah, you highlighted that white has the
Τρως λέει εδώ.
possibility
Και
of
μόλις φάει
going
εδώ.
for knight g5, and anyway white has four
Τρως
attackers. Yeah, if
εδώ.
white
Και
has
γίνεται
rook
αυτή η
a,
ανταλλαγή.
and
Και έτσι
the previous
δεν
move
αφήνεις
if
τα μαύρα
black
με
is
το
up
ζεύγος
on
των
knight d4,
αξιωματικών.
then that knight on
Οπότε
c6
φεύγουν
will
απλά οι
be very
μαυροτετράγωνοι
good.
αξιωματικοί.
Yeah, so knight d4, trading that
Και
very
είσαι ok
powerful
με τα
knight
λευκά
on
εδώ.
f3.
Έχεις και
Knight d4,
προφανώς
queen
κάποιο
d4 with
πλεονέκτημα.
already some kind of a double attack on the bishop and on the pawn. Clearly white can play the move knight e4 and then follow it up with rook a d1, but I also feel that somehow this
Οπότε,
trade of one
ναι,
pair of
χτυπάει
knights
εδώ.
should ease
Και αν δεν
that
φάνε τα μαύρα πίσω,
situation. Because Ding
φύγουνε.
is taking his time. I think maybe now we have the right to compare it with that old classical Kramnik
αν δεν σε φάνε,
Carson game, just
πας
so that
εδώ
our
ας πούμε.
viewers
Και τον υποστηρίζεις και με βασίλισσα και με ύπο. Εντάξει. Οπότε πάλι ανταλλαγή δύο αξιωματικών, ξέρω. Μάλιστα. Αυτό προτείνει ο υπολογιστής. Μπορεί να τον αφήσει να φαγωθεί και να παίξει βασίλισσα ε2. Και να τον αφήσει έτσι να φαγωθεί. Απλά θα έχεις μετά αυτά τα διπλωμένα πιόνια εδώ.
Knight h5, castles, and then knight takes f4, e takes f4. Exactly. That was that very famous Kramnik-Carlsen game. And
yeah, there's no knight d4 possibility whatsoever. Yeah, so this looks like definitely a better version for white here.
Το πιο πιθανό είναι εγώ θα παίζα κάτι τέτοιο, όντως αυτό που είπε ο Κωνσταντίνος. Και μετά ανάλογα. Θα προσπαθούσα λίγο, αν μπορούσα να τον κρατήσω μέσα. Καλημέρα Χριστό, καλημέρα. Έτσι είναι, γι' αυτό όποιος και κερδίσει αυτό το πρωτάθλημα, ο αληθινός πρωταθλητής θα είναι πάλι ο Κάρλσεν. Ο Κάρλσεν, από εδώ και πέρα δεν ξέρω αν θα υπάρξει κάποιος που θα πούμε ο νέος Κάρλσεν. Είναι αρκετά δύσκολο. Έπαιζα μια γρήγορη. Καλά έκανες.
We are talking about when we keep on mentioning that old classical game between these two fantastic players. So knight h5 is our current position. Ding is taking his time and I believe he is doing exactly.
Βλέπεις Κωνσταντίν, έτσι έχουμε υποθετά 5. Για να δούμε τι θα απαντήσει ο φίλος μας, ο Κινέζος.
Also, especially when you feel like maybe you got something out of the opening, then you have to be very cautious because just one small inaccuracy, just one lazy move like, okay, let me play something quickly, and the black solves all his problems, and then no matter how much time you have on the clock, it will not really benefit you. So taking his time is exactly what he needs to do.
Yeah, exactly. And
Αξιωματικός
I
στα 5
guess
σίγουρα,
the
λες,
main issue Black has in the position is the
Ο
fact that
υπολογιστής
C8
Κωνσταντίνε
bishop is
προτείνει
closed.
αυτό
Yeah, like
πάντως.
fundamentally in all of these things,
Για να γίνουν
like
αυτές οι
knight
ανταλλαγές.
f4 EF related as well. If the bishop on C8 would already be traded, it probably would be very equal.
Κάπως έτσι.
But it's really the bishop that is the issue. And yeah, a couple days ago I listened to some Carlson commentary on some game, and he said a nice thing about some position. He said that the position has sort of a low price of a move on one hand, but on the other hand, actually it has a very high price of a move, because like you can make any move and it's around equal, but if you don't make the right one, sometimes you don't get to get a game at all, and it will just peter into a draw. And that's the issue with these positions that are very symmetrical and very balanced. That yes, you
Τώρα,
might be
γιατί αργεί να μου ανοίξει
better
τη
now, because you
σελίδα,
have,
τι
here you
γίνεται.
have like the issue of the C8 bishop the black has. The white doesn't have that, so you are a bit better with white, but you do really have to play very, very accurate. And one slightly thoughtless, careless move could mean that black gets to fully equalize and neutralize all the pressure, and then there's nothing to talk about anymore.
Yes, I think also we should mention that once black gets knight h5 in, and he would be able to trade the queens and capture on f4, that would be an ideal scenario for black. Then he has nothing to worry about. So this e takes f4 structure is based on dynamics. Yeah, white
Αν
needs
να
the
χαθεί ο
queen,
ύπος,
white needs all the pieces in the board in order
το
to
θ πιώνει, πρέπει να
maximize
φάει το
his
άλογο,
attacking possibilities,
όχι το
dynamic options.
ε.
So in this regard, it's obvious that white most probably should move that queen. Queen c2 or queen e2.
Yeah,
is
I
the
see
most
also.
natural.
Yeah, this is definitely how I would.
Αξιωματικός. Ναι, τότε το θ πιώνει πρέπει να
I
φάει
would
το
want
άλογο,
to
όχι το
play
ε.
this one. I did see that. Okay, first of all, the bar was a little
Ναι,
bit also favoring bishop g5, bishop e7 for white
αυτό
still,
εννοείς.
so maybe there is something there. But though I
Ναι, αυτό είναι ok, είναι
but
μια
also
χαρά για
I
τα
think
λευκά.
the
Αυτό δεν μου
website
αρέσει.
engine mentions the move knight to
Αυτό το
e4,
δίπλωμα εδώ.
which is something I didn't quite
Ας το
consider, but
πανήγεις και
it's
αυτό.
also
Θα
interesting
μπορούσε
intermediate move.
ο
Knight
Νίμα να
e4,
γίνει ο
then the
επόμενος
computer
παγκόσμιος
takes on
πρωταθλητής.
c5. Not on
Δεν τον έχω πολύ παρακολουθήσει, να
and
σου πω,
then
Άντρια. Εντάξει, έχω
of course black
δει
is happy to have traded the
λίγο
computer,
τι γίνεται, αλλά δεν έχω
white is
παρακολουθήσει να
very
δω
active with
τις
knight
παρτίδες
c5,
του,
so
να δω
maybe
έτσι
this
πολύ
could
καλά.
also be
Φαίνεται ότι είναι
secret,
δυνατός παίκτης, αλλά δεν νομίζω και για παγκόσμιος
though it's much
πρωταθλητής.
more temporary than with the pressure you have after queen c2.
Εντάξει, σίγουρα δεν είναι. Εντάξει, αυτό τώρα με το αν χρησιμοποιούσε υπολογιστή και τέτοιο, και αν και έχει πει ότι online το έχει κάνει, τώρα αν το έκανε και στην παρτίδα εκείνη με τον Γκάρσεν δεν μπορώ να το ξέρω. Ότι είναι δυνατός παίκτης είναι, αλλά όχι όμως σε τέτοιο επίπεδο. Και να σου πω και κάτι. Άτομο που έχει παραδεχτεί ότι έχει χρησιμοποιήσει υπολογιστή online, ξέρω εγώ, πιο νεαρός, δεν μου κάνει. Εμένα προσωπικά.
Maybe then you can make the queen move to e2 or c2.
Yeah, that's of course an improved version.
Yeah, perhaps. Yeah, and also, I mean, again, I said the black wants to trade dark square bishop, but maybe now my knight is so active that bishop d6 maybe should be considered as well, because okay, when I get a knight on d6, maybe that gives me some initiative. I don't know. It could be the case.
Yeah, intuitively after bishop d6, I would love to first trade the knights with knight f6, but after knight takes f6 check, I'm unable to capture with the bishop.
Ενώ ο αξιωματικός ήταν 5.
This is bad news. Wow, but then knight e4 is a serious move.
Ζητά 6 προφανώς, αξιωματικός στα 4, ναι. Στα 5. Αξιωματικός στα 3. Ναι, ναι, Κωνσταντίνε, το κατάλαβα τι εννοείς. Το έδειξε και προηγουμένως, αλλά έπαιζες. Ζητά 6, ναι, ναι, κατάλαβα τι εννοείς.
I mean, once the knight is on d6, then there could definitely be some serious pressure, yeah, on the bishop on c8 and the pawn on b7. So I would be here be very concerned with black.
Απλά άμα παίξει αυτό,
White got to activate the pieces. I guess after knight e4, knight takes f4 is still the right thing.
δεν είμαι τόσο σίγουρος ότι θα παίξει ο Gukesh
The bishops.
κάτι τέτοιο.
After knight c5,
Ενδεχομένως να μπλοκάρει και με τον αξιωματικό.
queen e7 intermezzo is there. Also just simply knight g6, but maybe queen e7.
Το ζητά 6 είναι λίγο ρυψοκίνδυνο.
Yeah, queen e7. I'm loving that move. Yeah, this is exactly what black somehow required. Black needs to hit that knight before white can protect it. Yeah, with rook c1, I would be able to meet queen e7 with bishop b5. Wow, queen e7. This is probably what Gukesh has in mind.
Yes, in fact, that engine landed. I saw it was actually knight e4, knight f4, queen takes d8 first. Even the computer even wants to trade But then, of course, I guess it's very little for white. Because you get, you give black some tempi, you get him to develop the rook. And I guess this pressure is probably not substantial, although still, yeah, knight g6. Yeah,
Okay,
do
rook
I really
d1.
address b6 or not? Yeah, I don't know. Is b6 an issue? b6 maybe bishop b5, yeah?
Bishop
Something like
b5,
that.
knight g7,
Problem.
and
Knight
then
g6,
some
yeah,
knight
with some
e5.
knight e5, yeah, some problems like that.
Yeah, let's show these tactics. Yeah, suddenly knight g7 looks like black is just in time, but then there are some more tactics with knight e5.
Yeah, back rank is also an issue on top of other things, yeah? So it's very tricky for black, this one.
Yeah, the tension on
Προτείνω
d8.
κάτι τρελό.
Yeah, it's actually, I don't even see like the defense, but maybe there
Και
is
μετά
something
να
in the
παίξεις
defense,
εδώ,
but
να
it
φέρεις
looks
αυτό
like
εδώ.
to me it looks like it could be lost or something, this position.
Exactly, yeah, I have the same feeling. I'm kind of shocked why
Αλλά δεν
is
έχεις
not jumping.
ανοιχτή διαγώνη για τη
Yeah,
βασίλισσά
it's
σου
very
εδώ.
dangerous. So, okay, knight
You avoid
e4.
this. Yeah.
Yeah,
Αυτός
knight
έχει
takes
λευκό
f4,
τετράγωνο,
and
οπότε
queen takes d8.
θα έχεις θέματα.
Okay, rook has to capture. Knight takes c5, and then black will maybe go back to d5.
Yeah, also b6 is an option, of course. Some
b6, yeah.
it's an option, yeah, to get rid of the knight. And if ef bc, I guess ef bc like rook c1, you have the weak c5 pawn, but position is very simplified, so it's probably very little advantage for white.
Exactly. Here we would prefer the pawn being on e3, then we would be very happy. Rook ac1, the pawn on e3, nice little advantage, thank you very much. But with this d4 square, you always have counterplay.
Είδες, ο Liren όντως
Yes.
θα
Yeah, so
ξοδέψει
these
πολύ
are
χρόνο σε
perhaps
αυτή την
the,
κίνηση.
But knight e4 it's kind of very different in nature than queen e2, queen c2, right? So
Δεν το περίμενε.
it's a big choice here for Ding. Just
Μάλλον
very
τον
different
έβγαλε από την
roads,
προετοιμασία του Gukesh
different
τώρα.
paths that he can follow. Yeah,
In
Gukesh-
this regard, I like Gukesh's choice with knight h5 that basically is forcing white to make a decision. Yeah, for example, after the automatic queen trade that we spoke about, the game had a very clear direction. Yeah, and probably Ding prefers simplicity. That's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna keep pressing. Just one motive that we forgot to mention, but let's just highlight. So after queen trade takes, bishop d7, the thematic kind of knight e4 tactic.
Στο ύπος
I want to highlight
Δέλτα
according to
5.
Computer, this is a bad move. I don't know why is it exactly bad, but
Ε5
just
πώς
wanted
εννοείς?
to show this that due to the hanging bishop, these kind of motives you always have to watch out.
Yeah, it's a computer so brutal. Yeah, you're trying to make a very, very nice looking point.
Yes.
And for some reason, it's not happy. I also don't know why. Okay, I see that. I mean, why would it be like almost better for black? Like, I don't know what is possible here.
Εδώ εννοείς μάλλον,
Black, but I don't know.
Yes. Yeah. Anyway, I just wanted to highlight this beautiful kind of little tactic.
Yeah.
Computer did not appreciate
thematic.
it, but
Yeah. Very thematic,
but
yeah.
you understand what I mean. Yeah, that's what matters for me. And that our viewers understand what
Εντάξει,
I mean. But
έχει το
okay,
ζεύγος
we
των
have
αξιωματικών τώρα.
after knight h5, Ding is taking his time. Lot to
Και τώρα αυτό το ποιόν εδώ είναι στόχος. Και άμα θες να το υποστηρίξεις με ποιόν ειδικό σου, θα πρέπει να παίξεις κάτι τέτοιο, ας πούμε. Το οποίο εντάξει για την ώρα προφανώς δεν γίνεται. Δεν είναι και τόσο όμορφη θέση για τα λευκά. Και πάλι έχεις δώσει τον αξιωματικό και έχει το ζεύγος, οπότε... Και μετά ξέρω εγώ, έχει αυτόν εδώ, θα φέρει αυτόν εδώ. Θα είναι λίγο άσχημη θέση για τα λευκά.
But I think if we saw the kind of lines that arise, very much in the character of Ding in this match would be to go for 94 because the advantages after 94.
Το μόνο που έχεις είναι κάποια στιγμή να φέρεις τον ύπο εδώ, ξέρω εγώ, αλλά και πάλι και να εκμεταλλευτείς αυτό, ενδεχομένως. Αλλά δεν θα είναι εύκολο.
White gets to really press completely for free in 94 lines. So that suits Ding's approach of playing it very, very controlled today. That suits him more. But yeah, I'm not sure I would realize honestly that 94 is a good move. I'm afraid I would have not, because I think I often would underestimate the problems black has without dark square bishops. Because I always feel so safe with black when the dark square bishops are gone. I would maybe even think that even just knight f4 is sort of equalizing without much.
Για να δούμε, λέτε να βρει ο Liren το ύπος ε4. Αρκετά δύσκολη κίνηση.
We might be missing some resource after queen c2 and queen e2 as well because
Μπορεί να παίξει πολλές ενδιαφέρουσες κινήσεις ο Κινέζος. Ναι, Ανδρέα, γι' αυτό θα του πάρει χρόνο. Υπάρχει και το ύπος ε2. Αλλά δεν μ' αρέσει να δώσω αξιωματικό γέπο χωρίς αντάλλαγμα. Ναι. Και πάλι τον αφήνεις με το ζεύγος. Γι' αυτό ο υπολογιστής προτείνει αυτό. Για να μην του δώσει το ζεύγος. Γιατί τώρα αν σε φάει τρως εδώ, και αν δεν σε φάει και φύγει με τον αξιωματικό, είναι πάλι αυτό, ας πούμε. Οπότε πάλι δεν τον αφήνεις με το ζεύγος. Και αν, για να δω, και αν φύγει και πάει φάση εδώ, τότε γλιτώνεις. Ναι, πας εδώ και γλιτώνεις με tempo κιόλας. Και είσαι ok.
I don't know.
Yeah, and this bishop on c8 is still kind of doomed. Yeah, this is always a problem.
Exactly. That,
να, γιατί ο υπολογιστής εδώ πέρα προτείνει αυτό. Αλλά ποιος το βρίσκει, ρε φίλε, αυτή την κίνηση? Εγώ δεν την έβρισκα.
Little thing that prevents you from creating an easy loft, yeah? So at some point you'll probably have to go like maybe g6, but then you have these dark square weaknesses which maybe I cannot exploit, but still they're quite ugly, just on the eye. So maybe in the bishop endgame, you know, after g6 you will suffer somewhere. So it's all yeah, a little bit uncomfortable for black. Maybe you have g6 instead of the bishop g5.
Ή τα 5 θα έπαιζα, ή τα 3 των αξιωματικών, για να πω την αλήθεια μου εδώ. Μάλλον αυτό βέβαια.
Concerned as black, you know, because you never know, like maybe it will never come out, maybe something strong will happen, maybe h4 somewhere will happen, I don't know.
Μην δώσει αξιωματικό. Α, λες εδώ, περίμενε. Λες... Εδώ λες να μην δώσει αξιωματικό, εντάξει. Αλλά οκ, κρατάς και εσύ τον αξιωματικό σου τότε. Άμα δεν τον δώσει. Και είναι αρκετά ενοχλητικός ο αξιωματικός εδώ. Αυτός είναι καρφωμένος, από πίσω είναι ο πύργος. Είναι καλύτερη θέση για τα λευκά, νομίζω, πιο ωραία θέση. Πύργος γάμα 1.
Yes, because you know that it's quite interesting. Like, if you are a little bit on the pessimistic side, like Ding, you're first really happy to get this small edge because you're like, wow, didn't expect that. Very nice, risk-free also. So you're just really happy because you know it's a big upgrade to your life. That's how it was 5 minutes ago. But then there comes this sort of pressure. Okay, you're already used to that you have a small edge. It happened. It was already half an hour ago, and now there is sort of a pressure on you suddenly to do something with it, right? Because okay,
δεν είναι και τόσο δύσκολο να τη βρεις, γιατί ο αξιωματικός μου παίρνει ένα φύλακτος. Ναι, εντάξει, εγώ πάντως δεν θα το σκεφτώ, να σου πω την αλήθεια.
Yeah, the joy sort of peters away, but now the pressure comes, and Ding is now, you know, he doesn't want to.
Και γενικά όταν ένα κομμάτι μου βρίσκει την υποπίεση, δυσκολεύομαι στο να σκεφτώ το counter pressure, αυτό που λέμε, ξέρεις. Γιατί θέλει να μελετήσεις αρκετά. Ίσως όχι στη συγκεκριμένη θέση, αλλά γενικότερα. Οπότε προτιμώ κάτι πιο άμεσο, πιο εύκολο, όπως αυτό, ξέρω εγώ, γι' αυτό.
Could be too little, so he's not sure. Very, very big moment, and you see he's very tense and stressed, even though his position is very.
Πάει το 20 λεπτό που είχε ο Liren, το έδωσε πίσω.
And I like his body language, yeah, that he is putting a lot of energy into the position, like he signals us.
Το έδωσε πίσω το 20 λεπτό.
I know that I got something and I want to do something with this advantage. One other question, yeah, when we are looking at the players, I did notice that Gukesh is spending quite a lot of time at the board. What is your kind of take on this, that as a player, do you like to sit at the board, or do you feel like by getting up you are releasing some tension? How do you feel about this?
Yeah, I think for me,
Για να τους δούμε λίγο και σε κοντινό να δω.
Also, where I'm playing, what is the setting? Like, let's say if I play a big, interesting open tournament, with 50 boards, of which 30 games
Απ,
are
έπαιξε,
fascinating,
παιδιά.
maybe even 40.
Έπαιξε, οκ.
Then I have
Ήταν
something
5.
to walk. Bishop G5. I like this the least, by the way.
Ωραία.
Yes.
But yeah, in the World Championship match, just to finish on that question, you have no other game to look at.
Έτσι κάνουν ένα χάρτη
Your
της απολύτως
choice is
Βασίλισσα και
really
την
to
κουνάνε
sit at the
αμέσως χωρίς να
board or to
σκεφτούν
sit
άλλη
in
κίνηση.
this,
Κουράγιο θα μάθεις.
in this resting area. I don't know. I honestly never have the experience of playing the match. I don't know what I would have done. You probably can tell us more because you sat in the World Championship match chair and you had to make that choice of standing up from it or keep sitting.
Για να δούμε τώρα.
Yes, well, our match scenario was also setup was a little bit special because we didn't have.
Εγώ εδώ μάλλον θα μπλόκαρα
and we had to
την
share
απειλή.
the resting.
Το Z6 θα το φοβόμουν
resting area.
λόγω
And
αυτού.
then basically it meant like if I was sitting at the board and if I made my move and I wanted to go to the resting area, it meant like I gonna meet with my opponent. Yeah, I gonna see Vladimir. And in this regard, it was also a little bit kind of awkward, especially because he was better prepared. So he was kind of almost always putting pressure on me. I was sitting there at the board, and I know that he's resting in the resting area, probably drinking something or just laying down. And in this regard, yes.
Α, να βγάλει τη Βασίλισσα από την απειλή,
Να
είναι και αυτό. Ένα σκεπτικό. Απλά έτσι του αφήνεις τον αξιωματικό, δεν του τον ενοχλείς τόσο.
Gukesh had this tough position in the previous London setup system, and when he kind of.
Τώρα είναι καλή στιγμή για να φάει τη λευκή Βασίλισσα. Ναι, είναι και πρώτος υπολογιστή.
Standing a little bit next to the board.
Κάπως έτσι.
And from there looking, and whenever I see that, I feel that that's a sign of confidence.
Και μετά κάτι τέτοιο, ενδεχομένως.
It is like, yes, I was under some pressure, but now I have settled. I'm ready. You're also signaling your opponent that I'm perfectly ready.
Και μετά μπορείς και πιο εύκολα να παίξεις έτσι, ας πούμε.
Yeah, Bishop G5. Let me also refresh. Yeah, Bishop G5 on the board.
Μια χαρά.
I agree with you. I somehow feel that this is the least.
Έχεις και το ζεύγος.
And Team Gukesh should be kind of happy that this is on the board.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't see the point, honestly. Like, if you want to trade the dark square.
Αλλά υπάρχει το Είτε 4.
Okay, no, I think, the reason he didn't go 94 is that he probably didn't like Bishop E7. He probably didn't like Bishop E7. But even then, Bishop D6 would be.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't understand. Like, if you want to trade dark square bishops, why not do that in a version with the knight coming to D6? But maybe. Because I remember the computer did show a small edge after Bishop G5, Bishop E7, take Queen E7. But I don't know.
Αδυνατείς κάπως την ξενοδομία εκεί. Εντάξει.
Παίζεται
Παίζεται όμως. Παίζεται. Και μετά ποιον θα διδάξει αυτό ακριβώς. Ναι, Βασίλη. Για να με θα επιλέξει ο Gukesh.
Wait a second. Is it possible that can we take and go
Για να με
bishop
υπολογιστείς τι θέλει.
Is that some kind of an idea trying to hit on c6?
And 95. Yeah, though I think nowadays such positions are supposed to be very, very little. Like there's Bishop D7, Bishop C6.
Ναι, την ανταλλαγή βασιλισσών να θέλει και ο υπολογιστής. Αυτό ακριβώς θέλει, ναι. Όντως. Αυτό ακριβώς θέλει.
Knight f6, just take BC.
Yeah, I was just posing for bishop take g2. Is there a possibility?
Βέβαια, μετά λέει, ας πούμε, μετά από εδώ, εδώ παίζει εδώ, δεν μετακινεί τον αξιωματικό, σαν και εμένα τον αρχάριο, απειλεί πίσω εδώ. Και μετά θα τον πάει εδώ αυτόν, ανάλογα τι θα παίξει τα μαύρα.
Gives us the feeling that okay, Ding has something in mind, but we are not exactly sure yet.
Κι αν σε φάω και με φας και πάω εδώ, σου απειλώ τον ύπο. Εντάξει, έχει όμως να φύγει. Εντάξει, δεν είναι και άσχημη θέση για τα μαύρα. Τουλάχιστον όχι τόσο. Α, λοιπόν, μπλόκαρε, παιδες. Μπλόκαρε με αξιωματικό.
Also, question is like if I go just knight f6 and you take and I keep the bishop, there is some vibe from this Anand Topalov last round game where this bishop on b7 becomes very strong. despite the weak c pawn. Although probably he had a better version there than here, but still. I mean, I don't think that these things are a big deal, but maybe black can
Τώρα
even
μπορεί να
avoid them.
αλλάξει αυτός, ας πούμε,
Maybe black can even avoid them somehow.
και να φέρει
Yeah,
τον πύργο.
it's a solid position. Yeah, black will always have counterplay. Yeah, then with rook d8, you're gonna put knight on d5, you trade. It's never easy for white to control everything.
Yeah, and again, after bishop to b5, maybe
Τι άλλο
there's
μπορεί να
something
παίξει
like
εδώ?
just removing the knight is maybe a little bit too,
Κάτι τέτοιο.
a little bit too passive.
Αυτή η κίνηση μου αρέσει. Τη χρησιμοποιώ συχνά έτσι.
But,
Όταν υπάρχει
maybe
κάτι
rook
τέτοιο,
d8 first, queen
μου αρέσει
e2,
αυτή η κίνηση.
and yeah, moving the knight feels a little wrong, but it's to be considered too, like knight b4 type move. Feels very wrong, but yeah, okay, probably it's just terrible.
Θέλω να δω πότε θα αναπτυχθεί ο λευκό τετράγωνος αξιωματικός των
Because,
μαύρων.
yeah,
Αργεί ακόμα.
It feels like you shouldn't
Άμα
be
δεν
able
παίξει
to
β6,
do that with the knight on h5.
δύσκολα.
Yeah, if the knight is
Yeah,
on
no, I'm
f6,
yes. At the same time, if I get like
Για
if
την
I
ώρα
give
δεν
all my guys back, you have nothing
φαίνεται
at
ότι θα
all
παιχτεί
to
κάτι
work with,
τέτοιο.
yeah?
yes.
So these yeah, these are little nuances. Yeah, I don't I anyway don't love
Σε
this.
ανταλλαγές θα έτρωγα με πύργο. Α, με εννοείς εδώ, Λοιπόν, κάτσε να επιστρέψω. Λοιπόν, είμαστε...
Stop that,
What are
Anish. I
your-
think
yes.
my heart can't take this anymore. You can't tease me like this, man. This is I find actually, Anish, I'm going to throw it back to you with a specific question
Ώστε αν
because
αξιωματικός
I'm trying to make sense
α7
of how the players are attempting to maneuver their pieces to try and squeeze even a tiny
τότε
advantage out of this middle game, right? So
λευκός
my
ύπος στο
question, I guess,
ε6.
for both of the players, if this was the press conference, was if you're Ding and if you're Gukesh, does either player really...
Ποια βαριάντα, Βασίλη? Καλημέρα, Δέλτα Δέλτα, PPP. Βροχερή Λαμία. Εδώ δεν ξέρω αν βρέχει τώρα, γιατί έχω κλειστά τα παράθυρα. Πρέπει να το τσεκάρω σε λίγο. Δεν ξέρω αν έχει αρχίσει η βροχή. Κάνουμε μαύρο bishop, λευκή βασίλισσα τρώει. Κάτσε, Βασίλη, να δω που εννοείς. Λοιπόν,
Yeah, no, you mentioned a good point that this queen stare down is a thematic situation. Nobody is really against the queen trade, but they want it on their own terms.
εδώ λες θα έτρωγες με πύργο.
Keep the queens on the board
Ναι,
is very
θα έτρωγα με
likely
πύργο
scenario,
στον...
but if the game gets very sharp is not too likely, I think. Because I think that without the dark square bishops, there are a lot
Εάν
of
φάει
light
εδώ,
out of the position, and I think white is hoping for a tiny edge.
και αυτός φάει
to try and
εδώ,
milk. I don't
να
think
φέρεις
those
το λευκό
fireworks
ύπο εδώ,
anymore,
στο
I don't
ε5
think
εννοείς?
are in the position, but a small nagging edge for white is a possibility.
Well, I mean, we've had a lot of fireworks this match so far, so maybe having a game where we don't anticipate them coming in is almost a novelty.
Ναι,
at this
μπλοκάρουμε,
point,
ναι.
but
Αυτό
fair enough,
εννοείς,
we'll see what the
Βασίλη.
players end up doing. The other side, of course, of that one-way glass is plenty of spectators live on Sentosa Island in Singapore watching this match take place, and it's not the only live chess that you're going to be able to get your hands on if you'd like to go to a live event this very month. You have the chance to attend the Champions Chess Tour Finals live and
Αυτό θα είναι ωραίο τουρνουά,
We've got 8
Θέλετε να το
chess
δούμε αυτό?
greatest players,
Νομίζω θα είναι
including Magnus,
αρκετά ωραίο.
Ariel and Ali Reza, and they will be in Oslo in Norway from the 17th
Οι
to
μάχες
the
Φιρούζα
21st
Κάλτσεν θα είναι
December.
πολύ ωραίες.
And you are invited into
Κάνουμε
the room.
ανταλλαγή
In
βασιλισσών και
addition to the
αξιωματικών
high caliber chess,
και
your
φέρνουμε
ticket
τον
also
πύργο
includes perks
στο
like
Δέλτα
handed brain,
1.
simultaneous displays, photo opportunities with the players, and a whole bunch more. If you're
Εδώ λες
interested,
εσύ.
use exclamation mark CCT finals in chat or visit go.chess.com/CCT.
Αυτό λες εσύ, Σύμπλικε.
Your tickets now. So we find out soon how this tension is going to be resolved in the position. Both players trying to exchange, but maybe only on their terms.
Αξιωματικός στο
Ding Liren,
ε7.
hour
Να δούμε.
19, plays Gukesh
Λοιπόν,
Dommaraju, and hour 24 will be
ωραία. Για να δούμε τι λέει ο Ανδρέας. Αξιωματικός στο ε7. Ναι. Βασίλισσα τρώει.
Πως
Δέλτα 4. Ύπος πίσω ζ6. Ύπος τρώει γ6.
Thank you so much for having
Με τα
me.
λευκά
We're
λίγο
gonna
καλύτερα,
start
ναι.
off actually with the knight.
Έχουν
So
δύο
this is
απομονωμένα
pronounced
πιόνια τα μαύρα.
ma.
Και τα λευκά είναι και πιο μπροστά στην ανάπτυξη. Αυτός δεν έχει
What are
αναπτυχθεί
you saying
ακόμα.
about my mom?
Ναι, σίγουρα έχεις πλεονέκτημα εδώ με τα
Look,
λευκά.
it's fine. It's close enough.
okay,
It's
okay,
close
okay,
enough. Okay, let's go with the bishop.
Okay.
This is called xiang. Yeah, that's actually that's pretty good.
I don't think that's actually close, but thank you for saying that. Okay,
It's close.
We're getting there.
Okay, so this one is Wang.
Wang?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wang.
No. Yeah. Okay. Okay.
And this one is Ho.
Ho. Ho?
First one was better. Now that last one you just said monkey. You don't want to be saying that on the chessboard.
All right. I apologize to the 1.4 billion people who are laughing at my Chinese translation, but we are trying here. Gotham, you are still the king of Americans learning Chinese, and thanks for the lesson. Why don't you take us out by saying something in Chinese?
谢谢大家看这个直播，希望你们喜欢我们的这个中文直播，谢谢。
Πλάκα έχει αυτό.
This December, the world's top chess.
Για να επιστρέψουμε στη θέση, τι άλλο μπορούμε να έχουμε. Γεια σου Στέριο. Καλησπέρα. Ναι, τώρα. Δεν υπάρχουν και πολλές επιλογές γιατί απειλεί το αξιωματικό σου, οπότε πρέπει να δεις τι θα κάνεις. Εγώ κατά πάσα πιθανότητα αυτό θα έπαιζα βέβαια, για να είμαι ειλικρινής. Τι έγινε και ελάτε. Για το βίντεο αυτό με την Ήμο και τον εκφωνητή. Μυρίζει σοπαλία και πάλι, Εντάξει, έχει ακόμα δρόμο. Οι ισοπαλίες πάντως νομίζω ευνοούν τον Liren. Με την έννοια ότι στο Rapid νομίζω θα έχει πλεονέκτημα εναντίον του Gukesh. Έχει μεγαλύτερη εμπειρία. Εκεί θα παίξει ρόλο η εμπειρία. Αν και θέλω να πιστεύω ότι σήμερα με τα λευκά θα παλέψει να πάρει κάτι περισσότερο. Κάτσε να ανοίξω λίγο το παράθυρο να δω αν βρέχει. Για μισό λεπτό. Μια κάδα έχει. Λοιπόν, έπαιξε ο Liren. Τι έπαιξε? Υπό ε4 έπαιξε, μάλιστα. Από εδώ και πέρα νίκη ίσον επικράτησε στον τελικό, ενδεχομένως. Λοιπόν, έπαιξε υπό ε4, υποστηρίζει έτσι με τους δύο ύπους τον αξιωματικό του. Και φέρνει τον ύπο σε ένα καλύτερο τετράγωνο λογικά. Νομίζω τώρα θα δούμε και ανταλλαγή βασιλισσών. Έφτασε η ώρα. Ήρθε η ώρα να φύγουν από την παρτίδα. Φ6. Μπορεί. Απειλή στον αξιωματικό. Πάρα πολύ κλεισμένος ο Gukesh. Εντάξει, νομίζω καλά στέκεται για την ώρα. Δεν έχει τόσο θέμα. Λοιπόν, και παίζει ύπος πίσω ζ6.
I want to keep my small advantage. I want you to suffer. And the next couple of moves.
Θα τα λέμε όλα εδώ, παίζει χωρίς τον πύργο α8 τόση ώρα. Ναι, μέχρι να αναπτυχθεί αυτός.
So this is going to be fun. This isn't necessarily one of those positions, if you're the layperson watching, where it's all about, oh, this is really tactical. White or black has to find an only move here. This is edge of your seat tense. It's a different kind of tension where we're trying to work out, are we going to be able to spot the continuations that continue to give a slight edge? Is Ding insistent on trying to make this as torturous as possible to really force Gukesh into deep thinks?
Τώρα απειλεί να φάει εδώ
in computer terms,
και να κερδίσει
0.05
κομμάτι.
move, but just constantly cranking things up and trying to make sure black continues to answer the difficult
Οπότε τι
questions.
κάνεις εδώ?
Fortunately for me, you don't have to listen to me answer the difficult questions as knight f6 is on the board. I will now pass you back to Anish Giri and Peter Lecco, who will be able to dissect this further. So Anish, over to you.
Yeah, I mean,
Κάτι τέτοιο θα έπαιζε.
to be honest, I think Ding has played it in the most controlled way possible. You know,
Και μετά
he didn't allow a single imbalance.
αυτόν μάλλον θα τον έφερνα εδώ και αυτόν μετά εδώ.
Honestly, looking at the match as a whole, I think the match is
Και θα νιώθα
extremely
με τα
exciting
λευκά.
right now. I can't say the same about this particular game. And I think that's sort of the
Τώρα να αλλάξει βασίλισσος ο λευκός παίρνει διπλωμένα πιόνια. Εντάξει, τώρα διάβασα το σχολείο σου, έτσι. Άρα Κωνσταντίνε, σήμερα σκεφτόμαστε τα ίδια, όπως με τον είπα στο Φ6.
And this controlled with white strategy went slightly astray in the previous game in the English, where Gukesh was able to imbalance the position and Ding has almost lost at some point. That's at least how he felt about the game. I think he was more worried than anything. And I think that Ding is now, has become even more solid with white than ever before. That's my feeling. Like, the way he treats the position is extremely, extremely tight. He doesn't try to do any imbalance. And I think that, to me, it seems that in general, the match is most likely to be decided in one of the games where Gukesh is going to play with the white pieces, because Ding is just controlling the game extremely, extremely much. And now I think he has a lot of different options, but I think all of them are just leading to trades. I think it's one trade or the other. You know, I don't see what else, to be honest.
Yeah, well, let me ask you this question. Yeah, that for example, if we trade everything, because I think this is
Βάτον,
now
μήπως το
a
σκέφτηκες με
question
δεν μ'
on
σαν κίνηση.
everybody's
Οκ.
minds, that how much white can actually hope for if we trade also the queens, the famous queen trade happens. Now
Εντάξει.
white kind of destroys black's pawn structure.
Μου
And
φάνηκε
takes
καλή,
the more
ξέρεις, με ποια
symmetry.
έννοια.
Look at the one like trying
Με
to
την έννοια ότι
trade more pieces
δεν θα έπαιζα
and
ύπο. Εγώ
hope
αν
for
έπαιζα
the
στη θέση του,
defense
επειδή δεν
on
θα
the
σκεφτόμουν
17 is
προετοιμασίες και
something
τέτοια, θα έπαιζα
white
του
can
στυλ
hope
τίποτα
for,
τέτοιο.
or you just say,
Αλλά σκέφτηκα
okay,
εκείνη τη
thank you
στιγμή
very
τον
much.
ύπο
If I'm
με
getting
την
my
έννοια ότι
bishop
μπορεί να
to
σκεφτεί
a8,
για να
it
βγάλει
would
τον
not
άλλο
be
την
good.
προετοιμασία. Γιατί σκέφτηκα η
Yeah, I
ανταλλαγή
think you
βασιλισσών
maybe
είναι στην
answered the
προετοιμασία,
question
αυτό είναι
that
στην
you asked,
προετοιμασία.
very well.
Με αυτή τη λογική.
I think even these
Σκέφτηκα ότι αυτό ίσως δεν είναι στην
positions,
προετοιμασία.
they're actually quite thematic also from, for example, the Ragozin.
Αλλά αν
There's
έπαιζα
some
εγώ
Greek
δηλαδή
line
και
on
έπαιζα
that,
μια παρτίδα έτσι
where you
απλή,
used,
αυτό που δεν θα σκεφτόμουν για
take on
προετοιμασίες,
f6,
δεν την
and
έπαιζα. Να σου πω την αλήθεια.
as far as I remember, there's not even a hint of an edge there. You have very, very, very slightly a better pawn structure with white, but it's not even really the case. You can't exploit this weakness. I mean, black plays h6 and then f6, and white can't exploit these pawns. They're too far back in black's camp. White's other pieces, the light square bishop, can't contribute. I've seen some games where white got to put a little pressure when black was extremely inaccurate, and I think the game that comes to mind is like Rapport against Fabi. Fabi got some very, very unpleasant endgame in this structure, but maybe Raja Fabi, I don't know, maybe both of these games, but probably Raja Fabi, actually. Raja plays these kind of positions more. And even that game, it was very unpleasant, but that was also a draw. I've never seen white win one of those positions, like ever. I think it's just extremely, extremely safe for black, and yeah, it's a fake kind of pressure, really.
Πάμε πάλι για ισοπαλία από ό,τι κατάλαβα, από ό,τι
I
λέει ο
guess you
Γκύρι.
probably agree.
Yes, I absolutely agree. And the reason why I brought that up is that actually, how does white avoid this? Yeah, that what is white really doing? Because now with this knight e4, knight f6 tension, white is kind of obliged to do something. Yeah, he's standing in a trade. And what kind of alternatives do you see for white?
Yeah, I think one alternative could be to take on f6 without taking on d8, allow queen takes f6. Then in some cases, you can try exploit the fact that the knight is on c6. How did he take? And sometimes like queen c2, queen e4, bishop d3 set up to target the king side. Sometimes it gives you a small pressure, but
Λοιπόν, έχουμε κινήσεις όμως. Έφαγε με τον ύπο στο z6, τρώει με τον αξιωματικό και τώρα έφαγε βασίλισσα στο δέλτα 8.
Like in the most controlled way. He allows even bishop takes d8 without any imbalance whatsoever.
Yeah, somehow I feel like this queen takes d8 is a silent draw for I'm not liking this at all. I did feel that there was some tension, and I even wanted to praise that.
Με τι θα φάει τώρα ο Gukesh? Φαντάζομαι τον αξιωματικό για να μην διπλώσει εδώ, έτσι. Κάτι τέτοιο. Αλλά τώρα έχει τον έλεγχο αυτός εδώ.
Yeah, I think that Richard wants Ding to play for a win. We can see that through the.
Μια βαρετή ισοπαλία, δηλαδή.
But I don't think that Ding wants to play.
Πιθανό, Στέργιο, πιθανό.
So there is a dissonance, you know. Ding doesn't play, you know, for a draw from move one. If he wanted, he would play probably d4 or c4, you know, directly going for the QGD without all this sidelines in London. I think Richard is doing his job and his team, and they're looking at ways to generate play with white, and they succeed time and again. But at some point comes a moment, because Gukesh is defending well, there comes a moment where Ding has to choose. Does he unbalance the position a little bit and play for a win, or does he maintain the balance? And then he chooses to maintain the balance.
Τώρα σκέφτεται αν θα φάει με τον πύργο ή με τον αξιωματικό. Ή ακόμα και με τον ύπο. Αλλά εντάξει. Το θεωρώ λίγο απίθανο να κάνει κάτι τέτοιο. Αν φάει με τον πύργο και φάει εδώ και τη διπλώσει, είναι τόσο άσχημα για τα μαύρα.
it has backfired a couple of times, right? He lost that
Εντάξει,
one
όχι
game,
και τόσο.
and he gave Ding chances in some others, like in the other French game. Also, Ding took over. So
Ο
Ding is
αξιωματικός
really
είναι
saying like,
λευκοτετράγωνος,
okay,
οπότε δεν μπορεί να επιτεθεί
you
εδώ.
wanna play, like, you know,
Είναι και
just
τόσο άσχημα.
go at it, try and get me. But if I can do it safely, I'll do it safely.
Ελέγχει κιόλας
Yes,
αυτά το
I also
πιόνι,
think
που
like
είναι
the
τετράγωνα του
game,
ύπου. Δεν είναι και τόσο
the
άσχημα.
current position gives us the chance to talk about the match in general.
Μπορεί να φάει και με τον πύργο άνετα, άμα θέλει.
Discuss between each other before prior to show what we were thinking
Εδώ
about.
σκέφτεται ο ΕΟ, με Bishop δεν τρώγεται αυτό.
Εντάξει,
Εντάξει, τρώγεται και με τα τρία κομμάτια θεωρητικά. Εντάξει, αλλά κυρίως με πύργο ή με Bishop. Οπότε ένα από τα δύο σκέφτεται λογικά. Αλλά νομίζω είναι εντάξει και με ό,τι και να φάει.
That in your opinion, Ding might be some kind of a slight favorite in rapid play. I would be very happy if you could give me a little bit more insight that why do you think so? Is he having more experience? Do you think that by winning that very important tiebreak against Jan Nepomniachtchi in the first match and getting the World Championship title gives him good memories? Is that the feeling that you are having?
Not necessarily, actually. I mean, I think that Ding thinks that he's the favorite in the rapid tiebreak. You know, I don't necessarily think so myself. I still think that Gukesh's mental state is excellent overall. You know, he seems to be ready for fight.
Σε αυτές τις περιπτώσεις που είναι απομονωμένο το θ' πιόνι που έδειχνες πριν λίγο, ένα σχέδιο του λευκού είναι να φάει κάπως το θ' πιόνι και να κερδίσει μετά εύκολα. Το θ' πιόνι, το ζ' πιόνι εννοείσαι. Εδώ λες ότι το σχέδιο είναι να φάει εδώ και να κερδίσει. Δεν θα είναι και εύκολο να το φάει καταρχάς, γιατί μπορεί να το επιτεθεί μόνο με ύπο ή με πύργο θεωρητικά, ας πούμε. Και επίσης το πιόνι αυτό υποστηρίζεται εύκολα παίζοντας ζ5. Και οι αδυναμίες στα μαύρα δεν σε ενοχλούν και τόσο. Δεν υπάρχει μαύρο τετράγωνος.
Had some games with him too. I mean, I'm also not an amazing rapid blitz specialist, so I don't have a dominant score against Gukesh myself. But I did have some of my wins against him in rapid and blitz where I saw that he was vulnerable. Like the first game,
αν τα καταφέρω να το κερδίσεις, ναι.
He outplayed me completely.
Και που να πιάσει το βασιλιά και να παίρνει να τον παίξει μετά.
We dropped 2 seconds. And when we were in a scramble, we had like 2-second increment each. He started to totally lose control, like completely lose control with that 2-second increment phase. And I think that this is his main weakness. Also, one other game I remember in the rapid as well in Grandchester where he also outplayed me.
Πάντως ακόμα δεν έχει φάει πίσω. Το σκέφτεται αρκετά.
But then he had very little time and he was unable to convert it. He would surely have converted it in the classical. Okay, I wish to think I wouldn't have played this badly in the classical prior to that, but if he got the position, he would convert it for sure in the classical. But in rapid, he blinked there. You know, that he looked at the clock, he started calculating, he didn't have enough time, and he just blitzed something which is not the best. And I got away there too. So
εγώ νομίζω καλύτερα να κόψουμε αξιωματικό έτσι ώστε να μην διπλώσει το πιόνι. Πάντως είμαι Liren. Το πιο λογικό είναι να μην θες να διπλώσεις.
I do think that probably Ding also feels that reaching a tiebreak is a success for him.
Well, personally, I feel like the match is 50-50 in classical and also in the rapid. That's the feeling, because if you would ask me that who is a favorite in a rapid tiebreak, then I will just in a World Championship match I will tell you that only Magnus Carlsen, because we know that Magnus has so much belief, he has so much faith, he has all this experience, he's winning.
Καλά, τι δουλειά έχει τώρα ο Carlsen, αυτό που λέει ο Λέκο είναι ψηλό άκυρο. Με την έννοια ότι θα συγκρίνεις τον Gukesh με τον Liren στο rapid. Εντάξει, προφανώς ο Carlsen είναι καλύτερος και στο rapid. Αλλά νομίζω ότι ο Liren έχει πλεονέκτημα εναντίον του Gukesh. Έχει πολύ περισσότερο εμπειρία για να κερδίσει σε rapid. Δεν θα έλεγα ότι είναι 50-50. 60-40 θα έλεγα, για να μην πω παραπάνω. Αν φτάσουν σε rapid βέβαια. Που μάλλον θα φτάσουν.
That French backfired when he challenged Ding to the maximum, but actually opening wise It was a very sharp opening. He even got a promising position at some point.
Νίκη Λίρε 58%, Νίκη Gukesh 8%, ισοπαλία 35%. Ακόμα λοιπόν βλέπω υπάρχει επίσης στον Liren να κερδίσει σήμερα.
And yeah, Judith was completely shocked that no way such an ambitious, energetic young player like Gukesh, why is he going for the exchange French? And ever since we haven't seen him going for 1e4.
Τώρα αυτή τη κίνηση τη σκέφτεται πάρα πολύ βέβαια.
Might return to 1e4, or because the match is coming towards the end, it's already too risky of a strategy to try to challenge the French right now.
Yeah, I think that's the key question for Team Gukesh. First of all, in general, as we have 4 games, as you mentioned, I do think basically, like, if people want to buy tickets for the match, for example, I don't know if they even sell them, but like if you want to choose which days to go to the match, definitely go to the ones where Gukesh has the white pieces. Those are the days where the likelihood of a huge fight are much, much higher, because Ding will try to steer the game to controlled waters in his next white games too, clearly. Like it's clear that it's already...
Σήμερα μου φαίνεται αρκετά αγχωμένος ο Gukesh σε σχέση με άλλες παρτίδες. Και πιο χαλαρός ο Liren.
That's for sure. I think last game has showed him that it's not so simple. Ding is prepared in some of the lines.
Μάλλον σκέφτεται ότι πρέπει να σπάσει τη συμμετρία αν θέλει να παίξει για νίκη. Και όσο σκέφτεται τι θα γίνει αν φάει με το πιο νίκη. Ναι. Δεν ξέρω όμως ο Gukesh σκέφτεται ότι μπορεί να πάρει νίκη εδώ ή απλά να κρατήσει. Δεν τον βλέπω πολύ σε φόρμα σήμερα.
Not with any opening you will get an advantage, by no means. And yes, the French, I mean, clearly main preparation of Gukesh was e4, e5. Yeah, he must have spent a lot of time there.
Έπαιξε, λοιπόν, έφαγε.
Lots of training games.
Έφαγε με πύργο τελικά και έχουμε δίπλωμα πιονιού και πάμε σε αυτή τη θέση.
He didn't really expect the French, and he had one idea which backfired.
Ναι, σκέφτεται τις αυτόματες, παίζει αυτόματα τις δύσκολες. Ακριβώς, Κωνσταντίνε, πολύ ωραίο όπως το πες.
Then Ding very smartly kept the French. So the second idea was sort of, yeah, it was sort of a fake idea.
Λοιπόν, ωραία, τώρα υπάρχει μια ανισορροπία, εντάξει, όχι κάτι το τρομερό με το διπλωμένο πιόνι. Ο αξιωματικός είναι λευκοτετράγωνος. Και τα λευκά, εντάξει, έχουν και ένα πλεονέκτημα στην ανάπτυξη, το οποίο πρέπει να κοιτάξουν τα μαύρα. Λοιπόν, και έχουμε γρήγορα τις κινήσεις μετά. Εντάξει, έφερε τον πύργο εδώ, αξιωματικός στο Δ7 και τώρα έφερε τον άλλο πύργο εδώ. Οκ. Οπότε τα λευκά έχουν τους πύργους στις ανοιχτές στήλες. Τα μαύρα έχουν εδώ, αλλά εδώ είναι ο αξιωματικός μπλοκάρι. Για μπορεί να γίνει παιχνίδι τώρα εδώ όμως. Εντάξει, πτέρυγα της βασίλισσας είναι συμμετρική όσον αφορά τα πιόνια. Η μόνη ανισορροπία που υπάρχει είναι εδώ, αλλά δεν ξέρω αν μπορεί να γίνει κάτι. Ναι, ο Λίνος και αυτό.
Fabi just started running away from it because somehow he got outplayed twice. And I heard about that, and I've seen that happen many times. Suddenly players are afraid of something. Topalov playing, Vichy suddenly gets afraid of the Catalan. For some reason, like Vichy playing Topalov suddenly wants to keep going into some endgame, which is slightly worse.
Και αυτός μπορεί να παίξει βέβαια εδώ.
They start making these choices which are objectively strange, but they sort of feel that like it's in that match, like they want to go for positions that suit them and don't suit their opponent. So I think they just may be afraid that the French really suits Ding more, even though theoretically speaking, like in a vacuum, this is the most promising area to explore. So I don't know if they'll go back to the French or not. Depends also a little bit on how desperate they are and if they have ideas in other areas of the
προτείνοντας ανταλλαγή πύργων. Τώρα, άμα φάει εδώ, δεν μ' αρέσει και τόσο. Του έχεις δώσει τον έλεγχο εδώ της στήλης και δεν έχει πάρει και κάτι.
Gukesh captured back with the rook. Bishop takes f6, g takes f6.
We already highlighted
that we are absolutely not afraid with black to go for this structure because it's a very healthy structure. Nothing to really worry about. Rook fd1, bishop d7. The bishop is transfer to e8 so that there is connection between the rooks. Rook ac1, bishop e8, and not the body language.
Άμα δεν
At
φας,
some
να
point
παίξεις
during the
εδώ,
game I was highlighting that I
αλλά
very
και
much
πάλι τι
like,
κερδίζεις.
I think it was
Τίποτα.
before knight e4 or before bishop g5. Yeah, I think before bishop g5. There with all the tension after knight h5. Yeah, this position looked really promising for white, that maybe there is a chance to grab the initiative. But now the body
Ξέρω.
language of Ding signals to me like he does not
Αρκετά
believe
εισάξια θέσεις θα έλεγα.
really that. He knows that he's safe, nothing can happen to him, but he isn't really playing with intention to. Okay, he opted for rook takes d8. What does it tell us? I still don't believe that he believes that he really got something.
No, absolutely not. I think that
Ζήτα ένα.
in that there is simply a variation in the Ragozin.
Και να πάει πίσω.
I think I had the game myself.
Α, βασιλιάς είναι. Τώρα
on
ωραίο αυτό.
Shankir in last round. For some reason,
Να τον
it
φέρεις
was
πιο
okay,
κοντά, ναι.
for him to have a draw there in that last round. He was not ambitious, and we
Κάτσε
followed
φάει,
that
πας εδώ,
line in the
ξέρω.
Ragozin, which was the same. It leads to more or less identical position.
Και έχεις πιο κοντά το
And,
βασιλιά
there
στο...
You have this doubled f pawns, and I remember Ding also didn't try because you're not even supposed to try. I think it's not really
Λοιπόν,
an
όπα.
advantage.
Α,
I think
έφαγε
the
όμως
student
εδώ.
also shows
Έφαγε στο
that,
Δέλτα 8 ο
just
Liren,
this,
οπότε
looks
θα
like
φάει
the
και ο
bar is
Gukesh.
slightly favoring white, but I think the players are
Κατά
not
πάσα
gonna-
πιθανότητα με τον πύργο.
Some players that like, for example, Abdusatorov,
Δεν
he
νομίζω να
likes
φάει με τον
sometimes
ύπο.
to pretend that he's pressing in a slightly in an equal position.
Λογικά θα φάει έτσι εδώ.
So he would start thinking and try to do something. But Ding is not such guy, you know.
Θα πάρει τον έλεγχο
When
αυτής της
he has such
στήλης.
position, I think he would just trade everything further and bring the king to the center. I mean, I really don't think we'll see anything happen in this game anymore.
Ναι, ο Γκύρι λέει ότι δεν νομίζω θα δούμε κάτι παραπάνω σε αυτή την παρτίδα. Αυτή θα είναι η χειρότερη παρτίδα έτσι όπως εξελίσσεται, είναι δυνατόν. Να φτάσουμε μέχρι εδώ για να δούμε κάτι τέτοιο.
Wow, I would like to touch upon your thoughts that you mentioned about the French, yeah, and the way how you felt. I had very much the same feelings, yeah, that somehow it's more like psychologically Team Gukesh decided after this loss there that no, if we have other choice, we should not be challenging Ding in his French. By the way, yes, because we always keep on saying that the French was a big surprise from Ding. Yeah, he did play it against Jan Nepomniachtchi already in the World Championship match in one game.
Καλά,
But
μην ξεχνάμε ότι δεν μπορούν να δώσουν ισοπαλία πριν την 41η αν δεν κάνουν τρεις κινήσεις κτλ. Το οποίο δεν φαίνονται διατεθειμένοι γενικά, οπότε και έχουν πάρα πολύ χρόνο τώρα.
World Team Championship 2011, and it was the first time he played in the main team. He was a French player, so it
έχει φύγει ο
actually
Gukesh.
means that from childhood he is bringing all this
δεν είναι καν
intuition
εδώ,
to the
okay.
game. And then
Γι' αυτό δεν έχει
that,
παίξει ακόμα.
because they asked me that what do I suggest that Ding Liren changes in order to improve as a player, and I told the Chinese players that, well, he should forget about playing the French, he should learn some other better opening. Yeah, it was very interesting, and then I was following the next couple of years, and then Ding first from French player went on to become a Caro-Kann player, and then like from 2015-16 he became a Spanish player with the Marshall as his main weapon, and I felt like, yes, that's how you're gonna grow. Then he reached his peak, and then he's going back to French. I find
Πάει
it
να
very
φάει.
Yeah,
Τουλάχιστον να
for
δώσει την
sure.
ισοπαλία
And
πρώτα και
you're
μετά να
right,
φάει.
I also remember the same evolution in his opening, so it was kind of funny. Also, it was so like sometimes Ding is so methodical, you know. The way he switched, there was like a day when he said, "Okay, French, now we go Caro-Kann," and it was like boom, switch. From that day, there was no more French ever, you know, until now basically, and there was Caro-Kann every game. Then he's like, "Okay, no, better is e5." Boom. From that day on, it was only e4, e5. There was no more French or Caro-Kann. He would never bring back, you know, like because some other people they would sort of switch and then bring sometimes back in something else for surprise value, and but he was like very clear about it. And even before the Marshall, in fact,
Λοιπόν,
he first played the Zaitsev.
επέστρεψε ο Gukesh,
He once tried the
έφαγε
Μπορεί,
με τον πύργο,
lost the
εντάξει,
Endgame
το
to
αναμενόμενο,
Μπορεί.
και τώρα
He played against
ενεργοποιεί
Liren.
το βασιλιά του ο
And when
Liren.
finally on Marshall is where he settled down. Yeah, Marshall was his final like end of evolution of Ding's openings. Until now when he started again with
Βέβαια,
the French.
το μόνο ας πούμε θετικό είναι ότι οι αξιωματικοί είναι οι δύο χρώματος. Δεν είναι διαφορετικού.
Played the French. And when he was asked at the press conference on the previous match they asked him, you know, you played the French as a child, you know, so not
Θα παίξουνε και θα παίξουνε πολύ ακόμα
you're back
πιστεύω.
now to French, and Ding said in the press conference said that it was a very different French now than it was back then.
Ράγκα έφαγε γι' αυτό πιο νερό.
So it is true. The kind of variations. The computer, by the way, struggled so much. I think you were one of the.
Ή μπορεί να φάγε γλυκό.
You were winning a lot of these positions because
Να
you
πάλι γλυκό στον εγκέφαλο για να παίξει καλύτερα. Αξιωματικός στο Είτε 5 ήταν μελετημένη κίνηση για να το πάει ισοπαλία. Λε σύμπλη. Αλλά γιατί να το πάει για ισοπαλία ο Λίρεν με τα λευκά. Πήγε να τραβήξει την τζούρα. Γεια σου ρε φωνικέ.
What are you talking about? And you would just win the game after game in these Frenches. Well, I think it's no longer so easy because computer now shows, yeah, that these ones that you are winning, they're better for white. You should avoid them. You should play more dynamic. You know, you should sometimes break free with f6. Sometimes there are lines, you know, these ones, crazy ones where you take the pawn on b2, poisoned pawn type lines. So computers become much better, and the French is no longer the same French as back then. But yeah, the fact that Ding is familiar with typical ideas, the fact that he's played it in his youth, it contributes to him having a better understanding of it than possibly better understanding of it than Gukesh. Perhaps this is what the team of Gukesh feels, and they also don't want to be the slave of, you know, they don't want to be the slave of the engine, because let's say the engine says that the best chance for advantage is in the French, rather than in the Nimzo or the Catalan, but they don't want to feel like.
Γι' αυτό παίζει να έχει εκνευριστεί ο Ινδός.
Like they think like, hey, this is for the engine. But for Gukesh against Ding, better.
Αλλά θεωρητικά ο Λίρεν πρέπει να επεπεψημένη να παίξει για νίκη, όχι τόσο ο Ινδός. Και ο Ινδός δεν είχε κάποιο κάτι. Ισόπαλωμένο, αλλά προτιμώ τα λευκά σε αυτή τη θέση. Και εγώ σίγουρα προτιμώ τα λευκά. Εντάξει, οκ. Μπορεί για την ώρα να μην δείχνει κάτι αυτό, αλλά σίγουρα προτιμώ να μην έχεις αυτή την αδυναμία. Και εντάξει, και όσο να είναι και ο αξιωματικός τώρα στο ε8 είναι λίγο silly που λέμε. Για να αναπτυχθεί τώρα πρέπει να κινηθεί αυτός. Από εδώ δεν μπορεί να κινηθεί. Θα πρέπει να παίξει κάτι τέτοιο, ας πούμε, να το αναπτύξει εδώ. Αλλά μετά αυτό θα αποτελεί μεγάλη αδυναμία άμα είναι από πίσω κιόλας.
Yeah, no, as you mentioned that it's the both players don't think that much happening. I mean, the reason I don't find the position
όσο είναι μπροστά μπορεί να το κινήσεις, αλλά άμα έρθει από πίσω
Ding is not intending to play it ambitiously.
Μπορεί να κάνεις και πολλά.
Because if he was, like, if you really want, you can generate play here. I don't think you can generate a big or serious advantage, but you can, of course, invent stuff. And I've seen players like, I mean, again, I mentioned not direct, but I also think someone like
μπορεί να κάνει κάτι ο Λίρεν εδώ, να δημιουργήσει.
Maybe someone like Parham, you know, you could have players who would really position very ambitiously. They could even get outplayed with white, you know, they would start pushing the pawns on the king side and the queen side, expand with a3 before, maybe b5 somewhere, create a weakness, but to destabilize the knight. They could go g4, h4,
Καλησπέρα, Evan.
maybe f4, we create other weaknesses. So they could even overpush it or push it. And I mean, you can definitely generate play here still, but I don't think Ding wants it. As for the king, as you mentioned, yeah, I think that indeed, what I've seen a lot of players do in these structures is they go like king g7, f5, and then king f6, and the king is sort of staying on f6. You can also go via f8, e7, but that would then lose your tempo. But you know, I think that it also doesn't.
Τα μαύρα μπορούν να κάνουν κάτι. Τα μαύρα είναι πιο παθητικά σε αυτή τη θέση. Πρέπει να βρεις τρόπο να ενεργοποιήσεις κάπως αυτόν περισσότερο.
Tempo so that white goes rook d1 and then you take. Another question is, I
guess, if
you would be worried with black, maybe you want to go like knight e5 to try and trade the knight. I think this is the needed, such a desperate approach.
Ασκήσεις πίεση εδώ.
Especially because of bishop e2 maybe then. But still, yeah, it's something to also look into. Maybe you want to trade one more piece. Maybe you want to go like knight e7 and rook c8 and trade the rook.
Αλλά μετά που θα πας στον αξιωματικό σου.
Maybe you don't want to push the f-pawn yet. You want to go somewhere e5 and keep the pawn on f6. I don't know. You can do it differently, but I think the fact that Ding is not ambitious is what essentially makes this position not too exciting.
Yes, I also have this.
Άμα
this
προσπαθεί ο
feeling
Λευκός
because
το χ τι
I
να κάνει ο
have
Μαύρος.
many
Εντάξει, είναι
more
σωστό αυτό,
promising
αλλά δεν ξέρω
options.
αν
I
προσπαθεί
don't
το
know
χ
exactly
ο
objectively
Λίρεν.
they were stronger or not, but
Δεν
Ding
νομίζω
had
να
more
το
life
προσπαθεί,
in
να
it.
το έχει στο νου του.
And Ding
Τουλάχιστον
opted for it in a
δεν μου φάνηκε
classical
έτσι.
game. It
Λοιπόν,
somehow
έπαιξε ο
feels that it
Gukesh.
should be too little. Yeah, Gukesh goes for
Βασιλιά
king
στο
g7.
Είτε 7.
When we
Μάλιστα.
highlighted this f5, king g7, king f6 plan,
Εντάξει.
you spoke from my heart. I
Ελέγχει.
also felt very much like
Το
you
ζητά
know what,
6, μένει
it
κοντάκι
might
σε
look
αυτό,
a
το
bit
υποστηρίζει.
counterintuitive that why would black place all his pawns on the light squares, but I actually also very much like this f5, king f6, and now since Gukesh made up his mind for opting for king g7, I believe we're gonna most probably be seeing f5, king f6 as a follow-up. It
Α,
restricts this bishop
ότι θα βάλει το
on
βασιλιά εδώ, όχι το
c4.
πιόνι
The
αυτό.
king on
Θα αφήσει
f6
τα
is
πιόνια στα λευκά
beautifully
και θα έχει το
placed.
βασιλιά
Black
εδώ.
also is getting ready for dynamic possibilities. And one thing
Ωραία, τώρα με τα λευκά
that
πώς
in
μπορεί
general
να
I
πάρεις
would like
κάτι.
to mention that in all these symmetrical
Να
positions,
συνεχίσεις έτσι.
normally it's considered that it's more beneficial to having the C file compared to the D file. Why? Because we look at this knight on F3 and we already get the answer to
Κάτι
it.
τέτοιο σου.
The knight on F3, or also from black's perspective, the knight on
Να
F6
μας φάει
actually
εδώ.
beautifully covers the anti-square, the only anti-square on D2. While if, for example, the
Και έχεις
C
πιο
file
ενεργό
opens
βασιλιά
up,
κάπως, ας πούμε.
then white
Προσπαθείς
can
να το
invade with
φέρεις.
the rook to c7, and that's why I also like very much your kind of intuitive feeling like knight e7, rook c8, just in case, making sure that even this small imbalance should not be anymore in white's favor.
Yeah, no, quite interesting that with the queens on the board and attacking possibilities, I think you're supposed to want the d file, not the c file.
Δώσε αξιωματικό
Because of
ζούτα
the check
5 για να
potential.
φέρεις τον πύργο στην 7η
Like if
γραμμή.
you have two rooks doubled and you have a queen on the board, you rather have the rook d2 d1 versus c8 c7 than the way around in a middle game.
Για να
Because
φέρεις
of
τον
the
πύργο εδώ, αλλά θα πρέπει να
simplification, you want to
μετακινηθεί
use
αυτός,
the check
έτσι.
sometimes. And rook c1 is not a check. So this thing with which file you want to have, it sort of depends on whether you have the queen zone or not. Kind of little
Θα πρέπει να
nuances, but I
μετακινηθεί
guess
αυτός για να
that,
μπορέσεις να τον φέρεις εδώ. Αν
with
καταφέρεις να
this
τον φέρεις εδώ,
particular
βέβαια, αν έχεις πολύ
material,
καλά.
on the board, you can have rook on d file, c file, c file, d file. It will be all trade each other. But actually, yeah, if you imagine the black had the rook on c file, white.
Εγώ θα ήθελα να φέρω το βασιλιά πιο κοντά, να ελέγχω αυτά τα τετράγωνα για να ενεργοποιήσω και τον ύπο. Για να μην μπορώ να παίξει αυτός εδώ. Όσο έχει υπάρχει αυτό, δεν μπορώ να ενεργοποιήσω τον ύπο μου. Ας πούμε. Οπότε θα ήθελα το βασιλιά μου εδώ, να ελέγχω αυτά εδώ. Και ο ύπος ε5 είναι καλός στην επόμενη του μαύρου, γι' αυτό έπαιξε το βασιλιά για να φυλάξει το πιόν ε5 αν αλλάχθουν οι ύποι. Εδώ, αλλά θες αυτό το πιόν εδώ. Δεν ξέρω. Αν θες το πιόνι αυτό εδώ. Εγώ θα κινήσω βασιλιά και εγώ κάτι τέτοιο. Μήπως ο μαύρος να βελτιώσει τον ύπο του για να παίξει ο αξιωματικός του. Ναι, Θοδωρή, αυτό σκεφτόμουν. Πώς μπορεί να αναπτύξει τον αξιωματικό. Και ο μόνος τρόπος να το κάνω, από ό,τι φαίνεται, είναι να κινήσει τον ύπο. Γιατί και να παίξει ζήτα 5 δεν νομίζω ότι θα παίξει ζήτα 6 μετά. Για να τον φέρει από εδώ. Μετά αυτό το πιόνι εδώ πίσω. Είναι λίγο περίεργο. Αξιωματικός.
Like a draw with white is a small loss. So you should maybe take the risk because the draw is not actually neutral. Draw is actually negative for you. There's that.
Α, λες αυτό ούτως ώστε αν σε φάει να φας εδώ. Αλλά όχι, δεν γίνεται. Κάτι τέτοιο μάλλον θα σκέφτηκες.
Exactly what I'm saying. Yes, yes. So you have to.
Αν δεν ήταν αυτός,
you cannot win the championship match and not
μπορούσε
take the
να κάνεις
risk.
κάτι
You
τέτοιο.
have to at some point take the risk and maybe best to do is now. And if you do it later, it will be worse. Like let's say.
Ναι, Στέργιο, το κατάλαβα.
Two white games left. It's very risky to take the risk. But it will be much more
Το
risky.
ε5 ποιον είναι καλό, παίζει και το ζήτα 6 μετά, όχι το βασιλιά. Ναι. Έτσι. Μετά έχεις αυτό το θέμα βέβαια, που είναι σε λευκό. Θα έχεις βέβαια το βασιλιά από πίσω.
Because if you go from classical to rapid, the chances drop. If you go from rapid to blitz, the chances drop further. Because I think that Gukesh's main weakness in the fast time controls is the fact that he is bad in, relatively to his incredible strength, he is bad in the time scramble. So the more likely you get to the scramble, the lower his chances are. So with every, even with the time.
Εγώ αυτόν τον ύπο θα ήθελα, ξέρω εγώ, να τον φέρω εδώ και μετά εδώ, χτυπώντας, ξέρω εγώ, κάτι τέτοιο. Και αν μπορούσα δηλαδή να τον ανταλλάξω με αυτόν τον αξιωματικό, σαν μαύρο δηλαδή, θα το είχα αυτό στο νου μου. Σαν σκεπτικό.
Yeah, there is not too much to talk about on the position. Nothing really changes. Now it's up to Gukesh to decide exactly which setup.
Α, έπαιξε, τι έπαιξε? Α3. Μάλιστα. Ελέγχει τώρα το Β4.
I want to highlight, yeah, that of course there is a very huge difference between classical chess when the players have 2 hours on the clock and the rapid. And even though now we are seeing that both sides are not really
και τώρα ενδεχομένως να παίξει αυτό που είπε ο Κωνσταντίνος, κάτι τέτοιο.
But the teams are working, and my big feeling is that are there ideas in their petto, yeah, that they are keeping in their bag, that
και τώρα ναι, μπορείς να αναπτύξεις και αυτόν.
2-3 interesting ideas for the faster time control. But we don't want to use them now in the classical because in classical it's easier to neutralize. But actually there is a lot to be looking forward to when the faster time control appears. What is your take on this? Do you also have special rapid in general or for these Grand Chess Tour tournaments you prepare differently?
Yeah, I think there are two things usually that happen with the rapid and classical. So there are two differences. One is that you have less time on the clock. That's the obvious one, yeah. But I think the
και μετά να παίξεις κάτι τέτοιο,
that's
αυτό, μετά να φέρεις αυτό από πίσω, να έχεις τα πιόνια έτσι εδώ.
Is that classical is played one game a day, and rapid is usually played, let's say, 4 games.
Καλύτερα να φύγουν οι πύργοι για να έχει μεγαλύτερο ενδιαφέρον η θέση. Ναι, Ανδρέα, αυτό σκεφτόμουν μόλις. Λοιπόν, για να δούμε όμως, γιατί έχουμε και άλλη κίνηση. Έχουμε Ζ5 από τον Gukesh. Θα συνεχίσει με τον Βασιλιά. Ένα πιθανό σχέδιο μπορεί να είναι η εξής τοποθέτηση των κομματιών του μαύρου, του άσπρου. Αξιωματικός Δ2. Α, Βασιλιάς Δ2. Μάλλον εννοείς Β, αξιωματικός Α2. Και μετά...
You play 9 people in a Grand Chess Tour, of which one is Carlsen. No one's preparing as Carlsen at all. Like, it makes no sense. You prepare for Carlsen. Okay, it's one of the 9 games, even if you win it, like, imagine.
Για να πιέσει εδώ.
It barely makes an impact.
Α, για να πιέσει Θ4 εδώ, για να πιέσει εδώ.
That's why Carlsen is so extremely good in those blitz events also.
Ναι, θέλει να φύγει ο αξιωματικός, να έρθει ο πύργος εδώ, να πιέσει κάπως εδώ. Και λογικά εννοείς αξιωματικός Β ενώ όχι Α1 για να είναι εδώ, ναι. Οπότε όταν ήταν το πιόνι εδώ, να έχεις τον αξιωματικό σου εδώ και τον πύργο σου εδώ, κάπως έτσι. Βασιλιάς Ε2, ναι, κατάλαβα ότι Δ2 προφανώς δεν μπορείς. Ναι, κατάλαβα ότι είναι ιστεριό. Αξιωματικός Β5. Εννοείς πριν παίξει εδώ, να παίζει εδώ, Θα μπορούσε και αυτό. Τώρα πως Β4. Τώρα πως Β εδώ εννοείς, τώρα πως Β4 και μετά Β5. Και εγώ κάπως έτσι το σκεφτόμουν. Εδώ και μετά εδώ, να έχω κάπως έτσι τα πιόνια μου. Λοιπόν, Ζ5, Βασιλιά Ε1 έφερε, εντάξει. Ενεργοποιεί το βασιλιά του ο Liren, τον έχει φέρει στο Δ1, ελέγχει και το Δ2, οπότε τώρα ελευθερώνεται και ο ύπος του. Ελευθερώνεται και ο ύπος. Ο οποίος βέβαια εδώ δεν μπορεί να πάει, εδώ δεν μπορεί να πάει. Εδώ και να πάει. Μετά τον στέλνει πίσω, δεν έχει κάτι τώρα. Θα πρέπει να γίνει ανταλλαγή πύργων και τα λοιπά για να μπορέσει να τον φέρει εδώ. Αλλά και πάλι μετά θα θέλει να εισφέρει και το βασιλιά κοντά για να μην διπλώσει, για να μην έχει το απομονωμένο εδώ. Θες αν κινηθεί ο ύπος αυτός, μπορείς να τον φέρεις εδώ. Υπάρχει βέβαια το ζητά 6. Τέλος πάντων, για να δούμε. Είναι το μοναδικό αδύνατο σημείο το θ. Ναι, είναι το απομονωμένο πιόνι των μαύρων. Όχι κανονικά εδώ που είμαστε. Εδώ που είμαστε να παίζει αξιωματικό β5. Ήταν μέσα στις κινήσεις. Φυλάει και το ε5 να μην μπει ο άλλος ύπος, ναι. Βασιλιάς ζ6, οκ. Οπότε ο Gukesh ελέγχει τώρα το ε5 και το ητα5. Οπότε άφησε τα πιόνια στα λευκά και φέρει το βασιλιά εδώ. Βέβαια έτσι κλείνεις οποιαδήποτε ανάπτυξη από εδώ του αξιωματικού σου και θα πρέπει να δεις κάπως εδώ τι μπορεί να γίνει. Τα λευκά τώρα που έχουν το βασιλιά εδώ δεν μπορούν να έχουν κάτι τέτοιο. Αναρωτιέμαι. Ο πύργος δεν μπορεί να πάει σε κανένα από αυτά. Οπότε αυτό σκέφτομαι.
Potentially bishop e2 and if white has the time to activate the rook to transferring it to h4 trying to target the h pawn.
Τώρα δείχνει ο Λέκο αυτό που είπες εσύ στεριό. Δεν ξέρω αν βλέπεις εδώ. Κάτσε το μεγαλώσω. Δείχνει ο Λέκο αυτό ακριβώς που... Αυτό ακριβώς. Απλά τον αξιωματικό τον φέρνει εδώ, δεν τον πάει εδώ, οκ. Ετοιμάζει ε5 ο μαύρος, λες. ε5 ή υπό ε5. Αναρωτιέμαι. Κωνσταντίνε.
So I guess the very little is unlikely that you can exploit the h pawn and again I just think that Ding is just looking for a solid setup here. I don't think he has ambitious plans. Of course, if you were ambitious, you could try send the rook to h4, maybe push g4, take with the rook on g4. Then
πραγματικά αν φέρω τον πύργο μου εδώ, θα είναι πρόβλημα αυτό για τα μαύρα, θα είναι. Υπάρχει αυτό βέβαια.
This is just not the
Αλλά
thinking that he is having right now. I mean, if there was an indication that he is trying to generate something here, we could definitely look at it.
Αν φάω, απομονώνω τα πιόνια σου.
But I always feel, I feel kind of
ξέρω εγώ κάτσε να δω.
Looking at the position
εδώ.
where I know that
Τι
they're
μπορώ να
not looking
παίξω
for
τα
anything
μαύρα, έστω
and
ότι
I'm
παίζουν
trying to
κάτι
feel
άσχετο.
that, they're just looking at some, I feel like somehow that I'm
Υπάρχει
cheating the
αυτό
audience
όμως.
and that, or that the players are cheating me, that
Όχι,
way.
πρέπει να το
Like,
προετοιμάσεις
you
κάπως.
can of course look at it and it's interesting. And if
Ο
we
αξιωματικός
play
δεν
like
θες
10
να είναι
blitz
εδώ.
games ambitiously, we'll have a couple of
Προφανώς.
results here maybe. One time, black gets
Για να μην
outplayed,
υπάρχει
one
αυτό το
time
πυρούνι.
white overpushes. But I think
Το οποίο
that
βέβαια
they're
υποστηρίζει και
just,
το πιόνι, έτσι.
yeah, Ding is not looking for, they're both not looking for
Λοιπόν,
ways
έχουμε
to-
κίνηση βέβαια.
If they're looking
Αξιωματικός
for ways to make something
ε2.
fun out of this game,
Έβγαλε τον
they had
αξιωματικό
much
από
more
εκεί.
opportunities before. Now is not the moment.
Δεν τον πήγε α2
yeah,
για να τον φέρει ενδεχομένως
I doubt,
εδώ.
Bishop
Τον
E2
κράτησε
definitely a
εδώ σε αυτή τη
normal move, the
διαγώνιο.
one that he played. Very logical. I don't know if rook c4 will come. We'll see. Also, it's
Και ενδεχομένως
Gukesh's
τώρα
choice now, so
κάνει
maybe,
κάτι τέτοιο. Θα δούμε.
maybe knight e7 is possible, because rook c7 I have bishop c6.
Λοιπόν, Clay, δεν το προλάβα να το δω το σχολείο σου. ε5, ε4.
Yeah, knight e5 is probably not the most.
Υπό ε5 θέλει ο μαύρος.
But yeah, knight e7.
Και τον είπα από πίσω.
Knight e5 probably also not bad. Yeah.
Ναι.
I just wanted to highlight that knight e5 gives white some hope.
Είπες άλλο α5, ναι, το είδα μετά
taking
αστεριό.
and then bishop
Ότι
f3, activating the bishop.
πρέπει να προετοιμαστεί πρώτα.
Knight e5 and then opening up the c file, abandoning it so easily. It's not what black wants. Your suggestion knight e7, that's a much more controlled approach. Yeah, then you're kind of luring in.
Όχι, το πιο λογικό είναι αυτό που είπες μάλλον. Να προσπαθήσει να χτυπήσει εδώ κάπως.
or if you want, you can just neutralize it also with the rook d7 move.
Yeah, many ways for black to keep things calm. John, you know, I'm
Το
not
θέμα είναι
being
πώς
too
μπορεί
enthusiastic,
τώρα
but
ο
you
Λευκός πρέπει με κάποιο
you're
τρόπο να
always
εκμεταλλευτεί ότι ο αξιωματικός του είναι ελεύθερος να κινηθεί. Όχι σε πάρα πολλά τετράγωνα βέβαια, γιατί αυτά τα πιόνια παίρνουν πολλά. Ενώ αυτός όχι. Αλλά δεν έχει και πολλές επιλογές. Δεν έχει και πολλά σημεία να πας.
Anish, you have to stop doing this. I'm like taking notes, and it'll be like a love letter by the end of this broadcast. It's going to be amazing, the quotes.
Με το Βασιλιά εδώ σου παίρνει αυτά τα δύο τετράγωνα από τον ύπο. Εδώ άμα πάει δεν κάνει τίποτα. Εδώ για να πάει χρειάζεται υποστήριξη. Δεν γίνεται έτσι.
Which actually begs the question,
στο ε2 είναι ο καλύτερος αξιωματικός γιατί μπορεί μελλοντικά να πάει στο ζ3, ναι, αν κινηθεί ο ύπος. Σωστό. Ούτως ή άλλως, ναι, αν ερχόσουν εδώ και εδώ, με αυτή την κίνηση έχει κλείσει τελείως πάλι.
We're going to be pondering that during the break, possibly the last break actually, if they end up drawing. But before we go there, don't forget you're watching live on Chess24 and you can subscribe to the channel on Twitch to unlock brand new emotes for every event and exclusive break time content during every single show. Your subs genuinely make events like this possible. So
αν κινήσεις βέβαια τον ύπο, του κάνεις πιο εύκολο μετά να παίξει αυτές τις κινήσεις. Η 22η κίνηση είμαστε, σε περίπου 55 λεπτά και 2. Έχουμε περίπου 20 κινήσεις, πες κάτι λιγότερο, περίπου 2,5 λεπτά την κίνηση την έχουν. Απλά σήμερα μέχρι στιγμής τουλάχιστον δεν υπάρχει κάποιος να έχει μεγάλο πλεονέκτημα χρόνου. Σε κάποια φάση είχε ένα 20 λεπτό στην αρχή ο Liren, μετά γύρισε λίγο και έχει εξισορροπήσει τώρα. Το οποίο θεωρώ είναι πλεονέκτημα υπέρ του Liren. Αν σκεφτούμε ότι εκεί που είχε μειονέκτημα χρόνου κατάφερνε και έπαιρνε τις ισοπαλίες, ξέρω εγώ. Οπότε τώρα που έχει ίδιο χρόνο, ίσως είναι λίγο πλεονέκτημα. Ο ύπος όμως έχει κινηθεί στα λευκά την 7η γραμμή. Αν κινηθεί αυτός ο ύπος, ναι, δεν θέλει να τον κινήσει. Γι' αυτό το λόγο, αλλά ενδεχομένως βέβαια, αν το κάνει αυτό, να έχει φέρει τον πύργο εδώ. Μόνο έτσι. Για να ελέγχει και το πιόνι και το γ7. Αλλά υπάρχει αυτός ο αξιωματικός εδώ που μπορεί να τον καρφώσει άμα φέρει τον πύργο εδώ. Ο λευκός ύπος μπαίνει ο μαύρος στο ε5. Να το κάνει πιο εύκολο. Επίσης ίσως β4, β5. Με ιδέα να εισβάλλει ο πύργος στο γ7. Να παίξει β5, να τον κινήσει και να μπει μετά, Ναι. Αν και είναι πολύ δεσμευτικό αυτό και αν αποτύχει, έχει αδυνατήσει τα πιόνια. Εντάξει, κοίταξε να δεις. Αν καταφέρεις να φέρεις το πιόνιο αυτό στο β5, το υποστηρίζει ο αξιωματικός σου. Οπότε μετά με ένα α4 τα πιόνια αυτά είναι μια χαρά. Και αν φέρεις τον πύργο εδώ, έχεις αρκετά δυνατή θέση. Του Will's View, αξιωματικός β5, αν τον αλλάξει με ύπο έχει πλεονέκτημα. Λες, αν έπαιξε εδώ και ξέρω εγώ, αν τον άλλαζε εδώ θα έχει πλεονέκτημα, ξέρω εγώ. Αν κάνει πίσω και ανταλλάξει αξιωματικούς, ισοπαλία και τέλος. Θα δούμε. Προς το παρόν τον έφερε πίσω και περιμένει να δει τι θα παίξει ο Gukesh. Άμα πάει ο μαύρος ύπος εκεί που θέλει, πάει αξιωματικός άμα 6 και φυλάει και επιτίθεται. Ναι, απλά το θέμα είναι ότι αν θα έχεις το tempo να το κάνεις. Γι' αυτό, επειδή αν κινηθεί αυτός, υπάρχει αυτή η απειλή. Πρέπει πριν κινηθεί κάπως να, έχεις, κάπως να ελέγχεις αυτό το τετράγωνο. Οπότε λογικά θα θες πύργο εδώ. Ή να έχεις πύργο εδώ και αξιωματικό εδώ, ξέρω εγώ, να το ελέγχεις έτσι. Όσο το κοιτάω τόσο μου αρέσει το β4, β5. Αλλά προφανώς εσύ εννοείς έχοντας παίξει τον αξιωματικό στο ε2, ας πούμε, κάπως έτσι. Γιατί μπορώ να κάνω τα μαύρα γι' αυτό. Μπορώ να κάνουν και πολλά ίσως. Δεν χρειάζεται να ελέγξεις την 7η γιατί εγκλωβίζει τον πύργο αν πύργος γ7. Α, ναι. Ναι, όχι. Γιατί έχεις το πιόνι στο β5. Ναι, άμα το πιόνι στο β5, προφανώς δεν μπορείς να τον έχεις τον αξιωματικό. Αυτό λειτουργεί μόνο αν τέτοιο. Αλλά ναι, ο στόχος είναι να το πας έτσι, οπότε ναι, αυτό που λέει ο Στέριος. Θες να διώξεις έτσι τον ύπο, οπότε ναι, μετά θα ελέγξεις το γ6 με τα πιόνια. Σόλτο, γιατί η γάτα θέλει να βγει. Ο Gukesh δεν έχει παίξει ακόμα. Δεν είναι και εύκολο τώρα να παίξεις με τα μαύρα. Τι θα παίζετε εδώ με τα μαύρα. Ε5 τώρα ποτέ, ε5 τώρα ποτέ. Ναι. Πύργος στο Δ4 και καλύτερη κίνηση από Gukesh, λέει ο Life Coach. Για να δούμε. Πύργος στο Δ4, όχι εννοείς Δ5. Πύργος στο Δ5. Με σχέδιο τι, να υποστηρίξει ακόμα περισσότερο το ε5. Με πιο σκεπτικό life.
Move away from the playing position just for a moment, Peter, because I think
Είναι δύσκολη η
today's
επόμενη
game,
κίνηση
so
του
this is me,
Gukesh. Δεν
I'm
ξέρω.
not going to do any analysis on the chess, but I'll do some analysis on the chess commentators. And today, I think, marks the first time where our commentators have spoken about tie breaks and rapid
Κάτι έτσι,
for
μια
more
κίνηση
than about 30
αναμονής, ξέρω εγώ.
seconds. Are we
Να δεις τι θα
finally
παίξει ο άλλος.
reaching that point in the World Championship where
Δεν θες να αλλάξεις
actually
κάπως την κατάσταση εδώ,
this
δηλαδή.
is now
ελέγξει αυτήν εδώ την στήλη. Ο ύπος εδώ πέρα είναι καλός. Μόνο αξιωματικό σου, αλλά για την ώρα δεν έχεις θέμα.
I'm not such a big fan that while there is a lot of action ahead of us to speculate about
Λοιπόν, έπαιξε. Τι έπαιξε, ύπος ε7. Α, λοιπόν, πήγε τον ύπο στο ε7. Για να τον φέρει ενδεχομένως στο δ5. Και μετά να πάει τον πύργο σε κάποια άλλη στήλη. Δεν άρεσε τη γάτα η κίνηση, γι' αυτό λες έφυγε. Ο Λευκός θέλει να παίξει β4. Ναι, ο Λευκός θέλει να παίξει β4 και όσο επειδή ήταν και ο ύπος εκεί και το δ5 και το β5. Αλλά τώρα έφυγε ο ύπος από εκεί. Αν ελέγχει το γ8, οπότε δεν έχει νόημα απλά το πύργος γ7 εξαιτίας του πύργου δ7.
Yeah, he had brilliant preparation. I was always on the defensive side. Back then, computers were not yet so strong in order to help you neutralize the opponent's pressure, like today. Now, but back then, Kramnik, with his experience of having already played like for 7-8 years on the absolute highest level, being one of the best players in the world, having had that match experience already against Garry Kasparov, where actually Garry couldn't win a single game against Kramnik, and lost that match without a chance in London. So there was a lot of pressure on me. And there I actually felt like it would have been so much easier to keep the lead in the match if it would have been only 12 games. Yeah, but with 14 games, with everyday pressure and Kramnik was coming after me, he had all these tons of preparation, I was never feeling secure. Finally helped him.
Εδώ ζορίζει μετά για τα λευκά. Οπότε τώρα τι θα παίξει ο Liren, τι έχεις τώρα με τα λευκά.
And all of a sudden we're gonna have two last fantastic games because the players say no, I want to avoid tiebreak at all cost, or at least I want to try. And they will play more aggressive ideas. Right now, the previous game,
να φέρεις τον ύπο εδώ, για να φέρεις τον αξιωματικό εδώ.
All about psychology. Ding has understood that if that Catalan is the maximum pressure that right now team Gukesh is able to.
Εν τω μεταξύ τώρα ο Gukesh αν θέλει μπορεί να παίξει και αυτό για να βγάλει τους πύργους.
I'm feeling comfortable. If, for example, this game ends
λοιπόν, αν πύργους γ7, αξιωματικός γ6, ναι. Ύπος δ4, ναι. Ύπος δ5.
Oh, okay. So plenty of psychology still to
Ύπος
consider,
τρώει
and everything could still go down to the line. Now, Anish, I'm going to leave you with maybe a thoughtful question to expand upon what Peter just said while I'll let you guys get back to the position.
It
is possible that
we see explosive last couple of games. Γιατί αν φάει στο γ6 έρχεται με τέμπο.
Let's absolutely go for it. In an age with computer preparation,
άμα σε φάει εδώ, έρχεται με τέμπο λόγω του πύργου που βρίσκεται στο δ8, Κωνσταντίνε.
I'll leave you with that thought and let you fine folks get back to the position.
Thank you, John. Yeah, for sure the fact that
εάν δεν υπήρχε ο πύργος εδώ, θα έχεις τη διαφορά και θα κέρδιζες, όπως λες. Ποτέ δεν βλέπει, πάει στο... Θοδωρή, δεν πρόλαβα να το σχόλιο σου. Λοιπόν, τι έπαιξε, Είτε3. Μάλιστα, Είτε3.
I think they're able to generate all kinds of different prep. So I'm not too worried in that sense. I think what will be really crucial, and I think only Gukesh knows that. I even think that whatever Gajewski tells him, no matter how much he trusts him and whatever else his team tells him, I think that deep inside Gukesh has
ανταλλαγή πύργων, ξέρω εγώ.
Wants to go to tiebreak or not. And I'm sure even if Gajewski is trying to tell him that
να έχουν φύγει
one thing
πύργοι
or
από
the other, you know,
το
that we should
παιχνίδι.
avoid it or we should go for it. I think the right mindset is always to say that it's okay. Because
Αλλά εδώ μήπως τα λευκά έχουν
try and
πλεονέκτημα
avoid tiebreak is a very, very bad thought. Because what if
λόγω
you
της
end up with a
χιονοδομής ή
tiebreak,
όχι.
then you feel that, oh no, the tiebreak that I was fearing. So they always tell you that, and you always tell yourself the tiebreak is fine, tiebreak is fine. But I remember this match, Vichy against Topalov. And the incredible last game where Topalov was white, you know, the sort of
Αν κρατήσει τους
insanity that he's gone
πύργους,
for at some point, the
τι άλλο
kind of
μπορεί να
risk that
κάνει.
he took there. And that was because even though, you know, he said that the tiebreak is fine,
Μπορεί να
even
παίξει τώρα
though
αυτό.
the seconds were saying, like, everybody was sort of saying the tiebreak is okay, but inside he
Μετά,
felt that he doesn't want the
κάτι
tiebreak.
τέτοιο.
And he felt it so strongly that he just we went for it in a position where it was an absolute insanity. I mean, one of the most remarkable game in World Championship
Αλλά
matches.
τι
He
έχουν
was
μετά
played
τα
a
μαύρα
great
εδώ.
match, the entire match, and then in that last game, the risk he took was
Δεν
so
έχουν κάτι.
incredibly huge, and it
Παίζανε
backfired
κάτι τέτοιο,
so
να πηγαίναμε στις
obviously
θέσεις
also
που έλεγε
that,
Κωνσταντίνος, ξέρω εγώ.
yeah, it was a remarkable case of psychology. And I think that no matter what you tell yourself at the
Μετά μπορεί να
surface,
πάει εδώ.
inside of you, you have a certain view on this. And I don't know what Gukesh's view is,
Αν
but it
είναι
wouldn't
αυτές οι
shock me
ανταλλαγές,
that the next or the last white
να
game
παίξεις
of
τώρα
Gukesh
εδώ.
might just be a total chaos, you know? Because
Αλλά
Gukesh
ο
is
ύπος
also
σου δεν
very good
βρίσκεται
at
εδώ όμως.
generating
Για να έχεις
play.
αυτά.
Even if, let's say, the team fails, and even if team doesn't fail but finds him a safe,
Ναι, ο ύπος είναι εδώ.
safe position, Gukesh, he is such a generator,
Και θέλει
you know,
μανούβρα.
of fighting chess.
Για να μπορέσει να
No
το
matter
φέρεις, δηλαδή
whatever the
εδώ
team will
θες
tell
τρεις
him, no matter
κινήσεις.
whatever the
Οπότε δεν είναι και τόσο
opening
καλό.
will come, he might create
Όλο πίσω
a
πάει
mess
ο
out of
Ινδός.
anything. And we could see
Και
at
κοίτα
this stage
τώρα,
of game indeed
άνοιξε αυτή τη
he
διαγωνία
has
για τον
proportion.
αξιωματικό του.
But if
Μήπως,
Gukesh truly feels
δεν
that
ξέρω,
tiebreak is fine, then
πώς παίξει εδώ.
you know he will judge it by the situation, and we could end up there because in
Και
with
φέρει
only
μετά
4
τον
games
ύπο
to
εδώ.
go out of 14. I think it is reasonable to think about these thoughts already,
Ή
especially
παίξει
because not only
αυτό
4,
και
but we
φέρει τον
basically have
ύπο
2
εδώ,
white games
εδώ.
for
Και να έχει
Gukesh,
μετά αυτά
because
τα
at
δύο,
this
δεν
point
ξέρω.
Gukesh sees that okay, his black games, if he wants, he can draw them at will almost. Yeah, there's like so little pressure that he's just not worried at all. So
Σίγουρα
he could really live
πιο
with
ωραίο
it.
είναι να έχεις τον
Basically,
αξιωματικό
he
εδώ
sees
παρά
the
εδώ.
match as 2 white games, in fact, I believe. So
Οπότε,
we'll see. It's a
όχι
very
και
interesting
άσχημα αυτή η
situation. I think
κίνηση.
talking about tiebreak is not at all a strange thing at this point.
Yeah, I absolutely get
Και ο
it,
ύπος
and
μετά από εδώ
very
όντως, ναι,
nicely
μπορεί να πάει
highlighted
εδώ
that this
και να έχει πρόσβαση
Topalov
στο ε5.
Alan match, that was kind of very, very strange because it was a very tough match, yeah, very even match, and all of a sudden the fear of Topalov facing Vichy in
Οπότε ναι, κατά πάσα
a rapid
πιθανότητα,
tiebreak,
εγώ θα έπαιζα
that
αξιωματικό
caused him
εδώ.
to collapse completely and throw away the match. Clearly, of course, we know Vichy
Γι' αυτό,
was
αυτός νομίζω είναι και ο
the
στόχος
absolute
με το
beast
ύπος
and
ε7.
best in the world when it came to rapid chess at that point. So it was understandable that Topalov was terrified, but still, having
Αξιωματικό
seen
γάμα
what
6,
happened,
ύπος
any
δέλτα
kind of
4,
tiebreak would have been better than that. Yeah,
τον κάνω
so
αξιωματικό μετά.
also what happened with Ding, yeah, in the previous match with White, he was really trying. It was obvious that against Nyapo, he felt like Jan is known to be a very fast player, very dangerous
Ναι,
player.
δεν θες να τον
He likes
δώσεις.
to press his
εδώ.
opponents on the clock, put pressure on them. So he might have wanted to avoid.
Πας
And
εδώ, ας
he
πούμε.
was way too aggressive in that last 14th game. He should have lost that game. Then we would have a
Άμα
completely
δεν θες να τον
different
δώσεις.
chess history by Jan Nepomniachtchi being the world champion. Yeah, so I think that scare still sits on Ding's mind, and that's why he's also prefers more cautious play. By the way,
Λοιπόν,
talking about
έχουμε
the game,
κίνηση βέβαια. Τι
after
έπαιξε?
knight
Έπαιξε
e7,
πύργο. Τελικά όντως
G4, rook c8, rook takes c8.
φύγανε οι πύργοι.
G3 signaled to me that yeah, Ding just
Φύγανε
wants
οι
to
πύργοι
kill
όπως
rooks,
είδαμε πριν.
obviously, and honestly, I think the rest is just a
Με
formality.
μετακινηθεί μπαίνει ο πύργος
Yeah,
στην
no, I think we
7η.
are in it already. I mean, in that phase for a long time, the formality phase.
Εντάξει,
So
οκ.
indeed, yeah, they are very accurately trading
Δεν,
the pieces. Both of them don't want to
σε
take any
ενοχλεί
risk here, which is
τόσο
understandable
δραματικά,
because black is
θα
objectively
έλεγα.
decided that should be a tiny bit careful, and white is decided that wants to be careful. So yeah, you
Και άμα
end
θες
up
παίζεις τότε εδώ.
both being very, very careful. And
Κάνεις την ανταλλαγή εδώ.
yeah, I was curious, Peter. You mentioned that the course of chess history, could have been different if Jan has won that position. And as someone
Αλλά
who
φύγανε οι
was
πύργοι
so
τελικά.
incredibly close to becoming a world champion yourself, I think you are
Οπότε τώρα θα
probably
δούμε
one of the
φινάλε χωρίς
people who
πύργους,
was the closest to
με
becoming world
αξιωματικούς
champion
ίδιου
without
χρώματος,
actually becoming
ίσως
world champion.
κάτι
Because
να
you had
μπορέσει
it
να γίνει.
all in literally the last game and you had the lead there. What is your view, in like more philosophical question on life in general? Do you feel that there is some sort of destiny and
Το μπορεί να παίξει λίγο δυναμικό σκάκι, όπως πάνω θα
because
κερδίσει
your
αυτός
destiny
που δεν θα πεθάνει αυτή τη
to
φαρεφάρα.
achieve all you achieve but not become a world champion? Or do you not see it that way and you just think that, yeah, it went wrong, could have gone differently, you know, happened. How do you feel about these things?
Yeah, well, probably it's a defensive mechanism. I'm trying not to think about it. But
Εντάξει, είναι μεγάλη η
certainly
πίεση που έχουν
it's,
στο έργο.
I
Δηλαδή,
do
σκέψου τώρα να παίζεις
remember
τελικό
coming
παγκοσμίου.
to the match. Yeah, coming to the match.
Είναι τρομακτική η
Especially
πίεση.
when I became
Είναι
the
πολύ
challenger,
σφιγμένη
when
και οι
I
δύο,
won
λογικό είναι.
Dortmund 2002, and then facing Kramnik, and those kind of times were completely different. Yeah, because once you qualified, it was also not yet guaranteed that you will have a match. Yeah, we have seen prior to that the Kasparov-Shilov case. Yeah, when poor Alexei Shilov has beaten actually Vladimir Kramnik, but finally didn't get to play Garry Kasparov.
Τώρα οι βασιλιάδες μπορούν να ενεργοποιηθούν πιο εύκολα, ο Λευκός μπορεί να αρχίσει να μπαίνει πιο εύκολα μέσα.
We weren't exactly sure if the match is taking place, when it's taking place. I qualified July 2002 and final match took place second part of September 2004. So more than 2 years passed with lot of back and forth. Garry Kasparov at the same time wanted very much a rematch against Kramnik. Yeah, so I was in a very unpleasant situation. Yeah, because okay, we are talking about the two best players in the world. Yeah, I was one of them. But clearly compared to Kasparov and Kramnik, only thanks to my victory in Linares in 2003, and that was so incredibly important. Winning that tournament, actually we tied with Kramnik, but on tiebreak I won the tournament ahead of Kasparov. That gave me the feeling that actually I might have the right to become champion. Prior to that, when you saw the list, yeah, Fischer, Karpov, Kasparov, Kramnik, and then it could be me. Yeah, okay, I'm a very strong player. I was extremely strong. I was like top 3, top 4 in the world at that time. But still, when you compare yourself to Kasparov, he wants to get the rematch. And there is all these negotiations. Then Kramnik actually says that, no, Peter, you won the candidates, which I kind of organized. And you are the legitimate challenger, and yes, I'm sticking to you. We're gonna play with you the match, no matter what kind of offer Kasparov is making to me. You know, place yourself in a 22-year-old boy who is in this situation. It puts some incredible pressure. So yes, I was.
Δεν ξέρω, Bill, δεν το έχω σκεφτεί, οπότε δεν μου έρχεται τώρα κάτι. Μόνο αυτό το ότι είναι πιο νέος, ας πούμε, ότι να, 18 χρονών έγινε παγκόσμιος πρωταθλητής, να είναι σαν κίνητρο για τους νέους παίκτες. Ο Μαύρος τώρα έχει πιο εύκολα τις κινήσεις ε6, να πάει στο ε5 και αξιωματικός γ6. Ναι, τώρα γενικά είναι πιο ελεύθερο τώρα το παιχνίδι. Ελευθερώθηκαν αρκετά τετράγωνα. Ελευθερώθηκαν πολλά τετράγωνα. Υπήρχε, ας πούμε, ελέγχαν όλα αυτά τα τετράγωνα. Οπότε ναι, θα είναι πιο ελεύθερο το παιχνίδι. Για να δούμε. Ύπος δέλτα 2. Ύπος δέλτα 6. Έπαιξε αμέσως.
And I got nervous and I did it in the wrong way and
ύπος γάμα 4.
and lost that first game. And what
για να δούμε τώρα, θα έχουμε ανταλλαγή ύπων. Άμα φύγουν και οι ύποι όμως από το παιχνίδι, μετά μάλλον θα πάμε στη σοπαλία. Άμα φύγουν και οι ύποι από το παιχνίδι, είναι οι δύο χρώματος αξιωματικοί, αλλά πώς μπορείς να κάνεις πρόοδο τώρα εδώ. Δηλαδή αυτά τα πιόνια, άμα αυτό πάει στο μαύρο, δεν μπορεί να επιτεθεί ο λευκός, ούτε ο μαύρος αυτά αντίστοιχα. Αυτά όλα είναι σε μαύρο, μετά αυτά είναι σε λευκά. Άμα γίνουν μπλοκαρίσματα, τελείωσε. Αυτό δεν μπορεί να το φτάσει ο λευκός με τον αξιωματικό του ούτως ή άλλως. Έτσι όπως είναι τουλάχιστον η θέση. Θα πρέπει κάπως να διώξει αυτό το πιόνι για να μπορέσει να ασκήσει πίεση. Αλλά εντάξει, με τον βασιλιά κοντά. Φύγανε ήπιοι όντως. Ζήτα 4. Μάλλον πάμε στη παλιά. Με την είναι του ενδιαφέροντος από θέμα marketing. Ο Κινέζος εμφανίζεται πλέον μια φορά το χρόνο. Ναι, απλά σκέψω αν κερδίσει ο Κινέζος μετά θα επανέλθει. Θα γίνει το comeback που λέμε, ξέρω εγώ. Και ενδεχομένως αν ανέβει και η ψυχολογία του να επιστρέψει στο καλό του αυτό και να αρχίσει να παίζει πιο συχνά και να δούμε ακόμα περισσότερα από τον Liren. Αν αλλάξει τους ύψους, OK, μπορεί να κερδίσει πιο βαρετή παρτίδα του αιώνα. Και Στέργιο, τώρα διάβασα στο σχολείο σου, αλλά ναι, οι ήπιοι έχουν φύγει. Αλλά τώρα έχει σχέδιο Λευκός να πάει να φάει το θ7 με τον βασιλιά. Φαντάζομαι είναι ελληνικό το σχολείο σου. Λοιπόν, β6, τώρα παίζουν γρήγορα τις κινήσεις, λογικό. Είμαστε στην 30η κίνηση, θέλουμε 10 ακόμα για να πάμε στην 40η και μετά από την 41η μπορούν να δώσουν ισοπαλία. Τώρα δεν μπορούν, μόνο με 3 κινήσεις. Δεν είχε τίποτα σημερινή παρτίδα, νομίζω, έτσι. Δηλαδή.
Winning Linares, yeah, it was always kind of the unofficial world championship with a double round robin tournament with Kasparov, Kramnik, Anand, Topalov always there. It was kind of super experience to win that.
Yeah, no, for sure, and clearly at your peak, the sort of deficiency of your style, they were not at all outweighing the advantages of it, clearly, as you have managed to win so many.
Αυτά παραμένει εμφάλωτο. Ναι, αλλά δεν μπορείς να το φτάσεις εύκολα το θ7.
I mean, it was also a very rough and difficult path, yeah, with all these matches. So it's for sure, yeah, remarkable career that you've had, and yeah, I guess it would have been a bit of more. With a bit more luck there, he could have become the world champion as well.
Ψώνια τα μαύρα είναι
σας
τετράγωνα. Ναι, είναι στόχος για τον αξιωματικό, αλλά πώς, δηλαδή, θα πρέπει να γίνουν κάποια διάσπαση εδώ. Θα πρέπει κάπως ο Λευκός να προσπαθήσει να ανοίξει κάπως από εδώ.
Still very much a good situation for Ding, who probably is as optimistic as ever about keeping his crown, as you know, he's able to maintain equal score against Gukesh, who was pre-match favorite.
Κοίταξε, αν ο μαύρος μπλοκάρει αυτά, ρε παιδί μου, εδώ, φέρει αυτό εδώ και τον αξιωματικό του εδώ και αυτό εδώ, μετά πώς θα επιτεθείς. Ναι, κάποιο σχέδιο αυτό μπας και ανοίξει, αλλά δεν θα είναι εύκολο. Αυξηματικός ψ2.
Bishop b7, Bishop c4,
Ναι.
Bishop c6,
Bishop
b3.
Και θ5.
Yeah, and then you can look at your opponent because we do, Bishop b7 on the board.
Α, έχουμε κινήσεις, μισό λεπτό λοιπόν. Έχουμε β4, ζ6, βασιλιάς δ4, θ6, αξιωματικός δ3, αξιωματικός δ7, αξιωματικός γ4, αξιωματικός γ6. Α, επαναλαμβάνουν κινήσεις.
Yeah, no, the game very early on lost its intrigue. Ding had some little potential for something, although truth be told, it was never much, but some little potential. But he's very quickly given up on that, and yeah, steering the game towards the draw.
Έληξε, παιδιά. Τελείωσε.
And on Gukesh's white games.
Όχι σήμερα, νομίζω ήταν πιο βαρετή παρτίδα, παιδιά. 5-5. Α, κρίμα. Περίμενα να κάνει κάτι περισσότερο ο Liren σήμερα. Ναι, αν κάποιος είχε κάτι ήταν ο Λευκός σίγουρα, Στέργιο. Νομίζω ότι αυτό είναι το πιο ασφαλές όλων. Όσο υπήρχε ο αξιωματικός μέσα, ναι. Κρίμα ισοπαλία και πάλι. Ναι, κρίμα. Όχι, εντάξει, να σου πω, είδαμε και άλλες ισοπαλίες, αλλά ήταν ωραίες ισοπαλίες. Σήμερα είδαμε αρκετά βαρετή ισοπαλία. Ήταν λογικά χειρότερη και από τη δεύτερη παρτίδα. Δεν υπήρχε τίποτα σήμερα, δεν ξέρω. Δεν υπήρχε κάτι σήμερα.
a spectator's point of view, the most interesting thing I took away from this result is that so far in this match, every time there's been a draw, because we've had consecutive draws for a while now.
Δηλαδή, άλλες ισοπαλίες που είδαμε ήταν ωραίες παρτίδες. Η σημερινή νομίζω χειρότερη όλων. Even from a layperson's perspective, today feels like the first day. Και αύριο έχει τα λευκά ο Gukesh.
Didn't really even have one player go, you know what, I'm going to do everything I possibly can to muddle the waters, make things imbalanced, really try and push for the win. Today felt, for the first time, like a de-escalation almost going into this draw. What does that change in the match psychologically? Peter, let's start with you. All of the draws so far have been really quite exciting before we ended up with the result.
Ελπίζω το αυριανό να έχει κάτι.
Yes, and it was very
Να έχει μια
much in the
ένταση, μια
hands
αυτή.
of Ding Liren to try to make the most out of it. We were actually praising Vidanish his opening choice, that from a seemingly innocent kind of line, he managed to get something. We also kind of spoke about it, that it's a risk-free chance for Ding to push. And all the more I'm surprised, and actually I feel
Δεν είχε τίποτα η σημερινή παρτίδα, δυστυχώς.
And I also believe that Team Ding is disappointed.
Και νομίζω ότι θα έχει και πολύ νόημα η συνέντευξη τύπου.
Not even really trying to squeeze something out of this possibility. And I believe that from this moment, actually, thanks to this, Gukesh can be very satisfied. Because he simply feels that
Θέλετε να δούμε τη συνέντευξη? Για γράψτε μου. Βασικά θα κάνω poll. Θα τελειώσω αυτό το poll και θα κάνω καινούριο. Να δω τι θέλει ο κόσμος, γιατί οι περισσότεροι δεν γράφουν κιόλας. Λοιπόν.
I believe Gukesh can get quite some confidence out of this.
Okay, no, that's really good insight, and maybe we'll see that out of Gukesh in the press conference as well. Anish, coming off the back of what Peter just said, I want to throw a little bit of a grenade into the mix here and maybe stir the pot a little. I don't know if it's justified. This is off the back of a rest day. This doesn't feel like the sort of ambitious extra preparation.
Καλό μεσημέρι, Σιμπλικ. Κάνω να πω λίγο. Αν έφαγε εξωματική, το Endgame βασιλιάς στρατιώτες είναι από τα πιο δύσκολα κατά την άποψή μου. Ναι, αλλά δεν θα τους αντάλλαζε ο Gukesh. Γιατί θα είχε αυτή την αδυναμία εδώ, δεν θα το συνέφερε. Οπότε δεν νομίζω. Κάντε like, subscribe και συμμετοχή άμα έχετε λεφτά.
He's making the whole show alone for a long time already. And
ψηφίστε όσοι ακούτε αν θέλετε να δούμε τη συνέντευξη. Ήταν βαρετή η παρτίδα 5, δυστυχώς. Ελπίζω να μας αποζημιώσουν αύριο με μια καλή παρτίδα. Όχι και εσύ, ναι. Νομίζω σήμερα περισσότερος κόσμος απογοητεύτηκε. Η αλήθεια είναι. Το βλέπω και από τον αριθμό των όσων βλέπουν. Οι περισσότεροι δεν θα έχουν και ενδιαφέρον τώρα να τη δουν. Θα τη δούμε μετά στο replay. Τέλος πάντων, πριν φύγετε όλοι, να σας ευχαριστήσω που ήσασταν εδώ. Ευχαριστώ και πάλι για την παρέα, παιδιά. Όσοι δεν έχετε κάνει εγγραφή, κάντε εγγραφή στο κανάλι. Όπως λέει ο Κωνσταντίνος, κάντε subscribe και συμμετοχή άμα έχετε λεφτά. Λοιπόν, παιδες, θα τα πούμε αύριο. Στο αυριανό live, ελπίζω να δούμε κάτι καλύτερο. Καλό Σαββάτο να έχετε. Γεια χαρά.
That's not the question. Gukesh has another problem. I mean, that's fine. That Gukesh has dominated the opponent psychologically, we got that. That's fine.